Hello.
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 Hi.
Hi,
Has it started?
We all waiting.
we are
Oh,
waiting.
okay. Yeah, because I thought I was in the wrong group, eh? But yeah, okay, cool.
Good evening, everyone.
Lost in cyberspace, hey?
Oh,
Yeah. Good evening.
how is everyone doing?
Now we are good. We are good.
I like the energy.
We are very excited.
I can hear. I'm also getting excited. What is making you excited? Let me just hear.
Well, we are waiting for you, Rindani, to give us the way forward.
What is the way forward? What do you want the way forward to be? What do you want?
To be as easy and seamless as possible.
The professional bodies hold that key.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Let's see if we have almost everyone having joined. Okay. Is everybody able to see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
able. Thank you. See it.
All right. So I think I'm ready to kick off. So evening once again. So welcome to this, let's call it an information session more than anything else. We really thought it would be a good opportunity for us to meet in this fashion to just talk about this new exciting agreement that the professional bodies have come to. Really exciting and opening up quite a lot of opportunity for so many of us to then hold the dual designations. So for those that we are meeting for the very first time, my name is Rendani. Let me just share my video. There we go. So my name is Rendani. I'm the managing director here at Endonamu. So we're gonna just talk about what we do here and how we do it and so on throughout the evening. But I'm with my colleague, Ferdinand, who is our academic head when it comes to the APC professional program. So good evening, Fedi.
Evening, Randani, and evening, everyone else. How are you?
All good, all good. But as you can hear, everyone is excited tonight.
I heard the energy. I was actually even worried.
Okay.
That's how the the CGMAs roll. We got a whole lot of energy. We bring that to our workspace, and that's why we are gonna blow this out of the ballpark.
Amen.
Quite exciting. And also, we've got our coaching supervisor, Zanele. So I'll tell you more about her as we go through the outline of the design of our program. Zanele, good evening.
Good evening. I'm also sharing the excitement. I can't wait. Oh my gosh, this is great.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we've put the following agenda for us tonight. And if you've got anything that you'd like to discuss, let's say outside this agenda, you may do so. Just in terms of just the meeting etiquette, let's keep our videos and the microphones off. If you've got a question, you can either raise your hand or type it on the chat. So Fedi, Zanele, and I've also got my colleague Ederwani as well, who will also be handling the chats. So she will also take some of the questions that come through the chat. But otherwise, if you just want to stop us at any point through the presentation, please do so. And more so, we will want to just hear also from the other side of the world, like just to hear how things are. So please feel free at any point to engage. So to then formally lay out what we plan for tonight. So first of all, so we all aware of the previous agreement that the professional bodies had entered into almost or more than just 5 years ago now. And the arrangement really then spoke to just a transition where one coming, say, from CIMA, looking to transit to CSA, needed to do what? Needed to sit for ITC only. And it was quite restrictive because one had only 2 opportunities over a 2-year period. Oh, yes, a 2-year or 2 calendar year periods. But I think with the current pathway agreement, they really did well to relax those. But what they've now introduced is this APC animal. So what we just want to do as part of that, of our first part of our session tonight, is to really talk about what the APC is, how it works. In more than one element, it's similar to the strategic case study, but there are quite specific elements that make it a bit distinct. And for one planning to sit for it, it's very important to understand how it then differs, say, from the strategic case study, and also what one might be doing in practice. The next is to introduce Endunamu, and then this is where we talk about how we deliver programs related to the CA qualification and where does APC sits for us. And after doing so, we'll then talk about the APC professional program. So we'll talk about it in general, being the one that, let's say, in a perfect, not in a perfect, but on a normal day, it's the way that it runs. And we'll also then just catch up as to where the program is. And for those that are saying that we are ready to kick off, then they would like to understand where is the program now and whether what will then it take for one to jump into it and plan for APC 2022. But if you are then saying that, okay, maybe they caught me off guard, I was also either in the ITC program or in a CTA program leading to ITC, or I'm thinking of sitting for the program in APC 2023, then one will then better understand how then the program caters for that. Then we'll also just share the general information, especially some of the information that you might have already seen on our platforms. And there are some that said that, yes, I'm interested. At this point, I don't have any qualifications. And we are saying that, okay, how does one proceed? Where does one start? So it's something that we'll then conclude with at the end of the day. So it'll just be for those that are saying that, yeah, in terms of the journey, it's either one is still in the CIMA journey or one is still in the CASA journey. And they're saying that, how do I then progress in order to find myself holding both of these quality professional designations? Questions, as I said, we can handle them as we go. We don't need to wait until the very end. All right, so let us kick it off. So the APC assessment. So Fedi will then be taking us through this section.
Thanks, Rendani. And good evening to everyone one more time. I think, Rendani, I think we can now, oh yes, okay. I was seeing myself twice. Good, yes, push to the next, yes. So let's introduce APC assessment, and apologies to those who know a lot about APC assessment. Either you've come across it in your previous life or whatever the case might be. This might just be a little bit boring for you, but it's going to be enlightening, hopefully, for a whole lot that do not even know what APC assessment is all about. So where do I start? I always start with saying the CASA profession is a profession that is highly regarded. And the reason it's highly regarded is because it trains and produces individuals that are expected to be responsible leaders in business. Responsible leaders in business are people that are respected out there, and they always look out for the public interest. They don't look out for themselves. And the CA journey requires a couple of things before one is said to be certified as a chartered accountant. And as you know from other angles, is that usually one would have gone through a 4-year degree, you would have gone through an ITC assessment, you would have gone through an APC assessment, and you would have also been through a training program for 3 years, and then you qualify as a chartered accountant. But what does this APC mean? APC is that assessment that requires one to be possessing all competencies necessary to be a chartered accountant. And what are those competencies? And those competencies are those 3 bubbles that you see on the slide. And the 3 bubbles, what they do or what they say is that when you are able to demonstrate these 3 big bubbles, and you're able to integrate your thinking and integrate all those 3 bubbles, then you are ready for entry into the CASA profession. And that is what an APC assessment assesses, whether you possess the 3 bubbles that I'm going to take you through, and you're able to have an integrated thinking of the 3 bubbles. Number 1 is that you need to be able to show that you've got significant and you've got elevated professional values and attitudes. The professional values and attitudes, what are we talking about there? When we're talking about the professional values and attitudes, we are talking about demonstrating ethical leadership, demonstrating that you've got an ability to adapt to situations and have a long life learning mentality. And lastly, and that goes to this business leader that we're trying to produce, is to have an element of citizenship. The great deal of citizenship talks to personal, professional, and institutional citizenship, to say, I'm not looking out for myself here, I'm looking out for the public interest. So that is what professional values and attitudes is talking to. Highest degree of integrity and ethical leadership, citizenship, and lifelong learning. Then also, over and above that, we say you need to demonstrate the highest level of technical competence. Technical competence, under normal circumstances, one would have achieved it through making sure that they go through their BCom degree or the undergrad grad degree, the postgrad degree, and also going through ITC. So those technical competencies, what do they entail? It's financial reporting as a key element of technical competence. Financial reporting, I'm talking financial accounting. Secondly, audit and assurance, management accounting, and financial accounting, management accounting and financial accounting, taxation, strategy, risk management, and governance. Yeah, I think I've labeled all of them. Yes, those are all those technical competencies that are required. Then over and above that, we say, right, yes, you possess your technical competencies, you show and live by this professional values and attitudes, but do you have enabling competencies of a professional? What are we talking about here when we're talking this enabling competencies is what generally we also speak about them as pervasive skills. Can you express yourself in a written form? So your business writing skills, your communication skills. We're talking about critical thinking. We're talking about business acumen. Okay. We're talking about emotional resilience. We're talking about working in a team. We're talking about leadership qualities. And all this, and digital acumen, how am I forgetting that one? All this are enabling competencies that then makes one a full-fledged CASA. To say, I've got the professional values and attitudes, I've got the technical competencies, and I've got the enabling competencies. And the APC assessment is something that evaluates all of these things in an integrated fashion. Okay, if you push to the next slide, Rendani. How does it assess it? So APC assessment is a paper that assesses those professional values and attitudes, technical competence, and enabling competencies in a case study format, in a multidisciplinary case study format. So it's a case study assessment, okay, which is used to assess your professional competence, okay? It assesses your professional competence at a level of an entry level CASA, okay? So it doesn't say maybe in your second year of training or first year, no, it assumes you are at a point where you are knocking on the door of wanting to be a CASA and saying, are you ready? Are you ready to go and become that responsible leader in business that is able to demonstrate professional values and attitudes, enabling competencies, and technical competencies? So this case study is given to you to show that you've got a key acumen of problem solving in an integrated fashion, because you're integrating a whole lot of technical competencies, enabling competencies, and values. Okay, and are you having a decision-making acumen as well? Can you solve issues and can you make decisions? Are you able to apply the highest degree of judgment in coming to decision and also as multidisciplinary issues? Okay, so there's an increased degree of decision making in that process in this case study. And your role is always going to be an internal. So when I'm talking about your role, remember it's a case study format. And in this case study, you are given a particular role. And this role is always a role that is expected of candidates immediately after qualifying as chartered accountants. So usually candidates that after qualifying as chartered accountants, you are either a financial analyst, you're a financial manager, you are a a disruptor of some sort, but it's really right after qualification or at an entry level into the profession. You're either working in a finance team or supporting executives, but they usually don't give you a role, an unrealistic role of being an executive already. Unless it's a very tiny company where a newly qualified chartered accountant can walk into that small, tiny company and become an executive to start with. Okay, but if it's a medium-sized, which is usually the case with the case studies, medium-sized companies or sometimes listed companies, you are really an internal staff member working in the finance team or supporting executives. You won't be given a role as a board member already, okay? Just to simulate that environment of an entry-level chartered accountant. Let me pause here. Is there any questions so far whilst Rendani is pushing to the next? Good. Doesn't look like it. So this case study that we call it a multidisciplinary case study. I want you guys to imagine it. You know, Rendani spoke about a similarity with the case study from a CIMA perspective, but I want you to imagine the case study that the APC assessment is the format of the APC assessment. So this case study is usually broken into 3 key documents. 3 key documents. We have a first document of the case study. The first document, we call it a pre-release information. Pre-release information. And there's something about that word or that phrase pre-release. This document is usually around 20 pages. And this document is usually going to tell you the background. Okay, maybe firstly, a welcome letter. Welcome, a financial analyst. Welcome, Wanda, because you are the financial manager or the financial analyst in this company or supporting the finance so that you understand your role. So that's the first thing that it will contain. For you to settle and understand what your role is going to be and what type of help the executives are going to need from you. And this document then is going to also captures a whole lot of information around the company itself. So where is this company coming from? When did it start? The background of the company, the governance and the leadership of the company, the shareholders and the company, the directors. It will talk sometimes about the auditors of the company. It will talk about its offering, the products that it offers or the services that it renders, and how, meaning the business model around the company. Okay, it will talk about it will provide you with some financial information, maybe the income statement and the balance sheet. So you can already see what type of assets, liabilities, and what type of income and expenditure this company is incurring. Okay, so that is all in the pre-release information, the background of the company and its financial information. And then also the rest of the 20 pages will usually now start having some letters and emails or documents around. In the next couple of days, can you start researching and being technical area subject matter experts in the following elements? So it could say, look, we are currently trying to expand into Africa and we're looking at the following 2 countries, for instance, and we will, and in our expansion, we're trying to expand in the following product, and we might engage with you later for you to help us present to the board around whether the financial feasibility, the sources of funding, or whatever the case might be. So they will indicate what technical expertise they're going to require from you. Okay, so this technical expertise are integrated from financial accounting, management accounting, finance, audit and assurance, tax, strategy, risk management, and governance. Okay, so they're basically saying, when you receive this document, this 20-page document, what should you then start working on, researching on, and making sure that you are a subject area expert in, both from a technical and also non-technical. I mean, some of you guys might think strategy is not technical. Some of us think is a technical matter. Okay, so that is that first page, first document, which we call the pre-release information. This document, we usually give it to you on the Friday. So CIMA and the professional programs, we give you this document on a Friday. And then Friday morning, 8 o'clock. And then you work through this document and researching and making sure that you are subject area expert for the next 5 days, including the Friday. So you're thinking about it, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. You've got the 5 days to work through this pre-release information and making sure that you study and become an expert. If PPE is triggered, you work through that. And it's not one. And later on, I'm going to take you through what the previous APC assessment were looking like. Okay? Then you spend 5 days with your team, unless you choose to work on your own with your team, and the team is only the fellow candidates that are writing APC, no one else. So you can't come to like myself as Fedi and say, can you work with us on this pre-release information? No, you can't go to Rendan, you can't go to any qualified chartered accountant or any other person that is not going to sit for this exam. Okay, you can only engage with your fellow candidates. Then after day 5, meaning after the Tuesday night, then on the Wednesday of the following week, that's when you go into the exam venue and then you receive what we call the information on the day. So this is now the information on the day adds to the pre-release information and twists the pre-release information, some subtle twists here and there to just see whether you are able to adapt from what we asked or we were saying get ready for, and are you able to adapt to the additional information, to the different twists, or you know. So I could have said, go and make sure that you understand technically goodwill and goodwill impairment. And then on the day, the information on the day gives you a goodwill impairment calculation. And I say, can you provide me the audit procedures as to how to audit that? So those are the twists that will come with that information on the day, because you are technically ready to know how to audit and how to account for goodwill and how to calculate the goodwill impairment. Then now are you also able to audit it? I'm just giving you an example. So this is usually a 15-page document that will have a couple of documents, and they use usually one document for every task. And then, and I'm going to talk about these two documents together because there's information on the day and the task list. So the task list will just be clarifying what is required from every single document within the information on the day. So the task list will usually contain 8 tasks. Okay, sometimes 9, sometimes 7, sometimes 6. It ranges, but on average, let's just call it 8 tasks. And the 8 tasks will just be talking about respond to this email, respond to this email 8 times, because in each email, the executives would be asking you, can you now help us audit this goodwill impairment? On another one, can you give us the key considerations around this expansion into Africa. Here is a junior has prepared this MPV analysis for proposed expansion in Africa. Can you review it for us and give us the review comments that will help the junior update the valuations or the capital budgeting or the NPV analysis so that it's ready for board presentation? Or can you prepare the slides for the board that I will review as an executive of the company before I present it to the board? Things like that. So those are the type of tasks that you will have 8 tasks in a task list that are coming from this information on the day. Okay, and you are given 8 hours. Okay, and the test is always say, usually it should take you between 6 and 8 hours. And the reason is it's simulating a day at work. To say at work, you'll start there at 8 o'clock, you'll have a lunch, and then you'll leave at 4 or 5. Okay, so because of that, then we're trying to simulate that and say, if you were given 8 tasks on that day, would you be able to cope and respond to all of them and respond to all of them with sufficient level of coverage and covering adequate level of matters and with sufficient level of depth. And then at the end, I guess, of the 8-hour day, you will have your attempt, which will usually be around 20 to 30 pages if I'm talking about normal font and normal spacing and not using double spacing or any of those sorts. Because I'm trying to think about it. Let's say there are 8 tasks and you spend 2 pages on a task and then it take 2 to 3 pages a task, then it takes you between 16 and 20 pages. Okay. So that is what you then submit as your attempt. And then once you submit, that's when then CICA goes and then start assessing you as to, did you demonstrate the adequate and sufficient level of competence of a chartered accountant at the entry level into the profession? Meaning, did you demonstrate sufficient level of technical competence across all the technical disciplines? Did you demonstrate enabling competencies? Remember, critical thinking, business acumen, digital acumen, emotional resilience, decision-making acumen, professional judgment, and problem solving through that process. And you communicated well and taking account of your audience. Did you also demonstrate professional values and attitudes, meaning the ethical leadership? You dealt with those ethical dilemmas so well that there's no chance that once we admit you into the profession, you will bring the profession into disrepute. On the technical matters that we said get ready for and prepare for the 5 days, even on matters that you never got taught, did you go and sufficiently revisit the literature to make sure that you're sufficiently ready to be able to demonstrate those? Making sure that you demonstrated the adequate level of professional and technical competence and the long life learning that we want you to be. And did you look out for the public from a public interest point of view? Samson, you're asking a very good question. Does the software have a spell check as you type? It doesn't, because from a communication, we want to see whether you make grammatical errors or and spelling mistakes, because we are testing your ability to communicate in a written form. Okay, so that enhances your ability and assesses your ability to demonstrate that enabling competency that I was talking about. So then, what does CICA then do with this submission of yours? Once you've used the software that we gave you. When we're talking about the software, maybe just to clear that, the software is they will give you the laptop and then the software, or you bring your laptop and then there's a software installed to make sure that you are not talking to your friends in the background. It shuts everything else and just enables Word and PowerPoint or Excel. And then you are able to then have your 20-page response on that. Okay. And then what does then CICA do with that attempt? Maybe let me take Larry's question before I move on to that. Larry?
Hello, Ferdinand.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Quick one. Can I bring a wireless keyboard and mouse?
Sorry?
Can I bring a wireless keyboard and mouse? The exam.
Yeah, I guess the question is, it depends on the rules of the year as to whether CICA is providing you with everything, like including laptops, or they're saying bring yours. We've seen diverting matters over the last year and a bit because of some of the challenges that they also experience. So we're still looking at as to whether what is going to happen for 2022 and beyond. Okay, but those things usually gets clarified as we go. Okay, and as to Lumka, as to whether you can bring your own laptop or you'll be given laptops. I mean, last year we saw CICA saying no one brings the laptops, and then they provided laptops, and then there was a disaster from that. And then for the March sitting, they said, okay, bring your own laptop, but if you want us to arrange one, let us know way on time. So the couple of iterations, I think, that they're still also evaluating on their end. Okay. So then what does CICA do with this submission of yours? Then they assess it. Okay. And when they assess it, there are key documents that they use. Document number 1 is what we call the specimen solution. So the specimen solution is the experts at CICA coming together and saying, given this task, what would have our responses look like? And everyone adds to it, adjust it, edit it, get it edited by language experts to make sure that it's coherent, it makes sense, etc. Okay, so we call that an expert solution, because not that every candidate is expected to produce that level of detail, and because we are not under exam stress, we're also what's the word? Collaborating. Whereas you will be sitting on that assessment on your own, on an individual basis. So it's an expert solution, not expected for everyone to get there. So it helps the markers to understand what is the full extent of the solution that one can see. And then from the specimen solution, it gets summarized into what we call the marking grid. Think about a marking grid as sort of like a rubric to say, what are the key elements that are coming from the specimen solution that candidates are addressing? And I'm using the word are as an operative word. Are addressing, not should address. Meaning, it's just taking the specimen solution and summarizing it in little lines. Okay, so to say candidate was a candidate demonstrates ability to communicate in writing. Candidates demonstrate ability to show competence in accounting, specifically lease accounting, something like that, so that you can see a couple of things that were assessed from each task. And this marking grid is split between what we call primary indicators of competence, and communication indicators, and lastly, indicators of higher level application, meaning here now you are shooting the lights out. You are going above and beyond, okay? But still within the scope of the task. Not that you're outside, you are now starting to talk about irrelevant things. No, you are just being more insightful. And then after we summarize the specimen solution into the marking grid, then we come to something which we call a strawman profile. And the strawman profile is now what is saying, at a minimum, at a minimum, when I need to say Larry is competent, what must he have dealt with on the marking grid? Because remember, the marking grid is a summary of being at an expert level. But we don't expect everyone to be at an expert level. But we expect the straw man, meaning this CASA at an entry level into the profession. What should they have dealt with at a minimum to become competent? And if they are not competent, then they are limited competent on the downside. Or on the upside, if they are more than competent, it means they are highly competent. And to pass, you are in this competent space. Okay? And that's what markers then have to then be trained on. And then they take your 20-pager, they take one task and see which competencies you are demonstrating. And ultimately, once they evaluate which competencies, both communication, primary and high level, where do you compare relative to the straw man? You can call the straw man the average man, the average CA. Let me call them the average CA. And if you are below the average CA, then you will be limited competent. And if you are on spot on with the average CA, then you will be competent. And if you are above the average CA, above the average strawman, then you will be highly competent, more likely. Okay, but there are ranges within those as well. Okay, it's not like it's a hard line between competent or not competent or limited competent. We don't call it not competent, we call it limited competent and highly competent. Okay. And then CICA at the end releases what they call the examiner's report with stats as to how candidates performed at every task. And one thing that I want to just talk about is, remember, they will assess you. Remember, I said there could be an average of 8 tasks. They will assess you on every single task as to whether you're competent, limited competent, or highly competent. And then on the 8 tasks, then we say, what is your overall profile looking like? I mean, someone who gets all 8 as competent will ultimately be competent. But then the more you've got the limited competent in your 8, then the lesser chance of you being competent overall. Okay, so those are the things that they go through. Randani, if you push to the next whilst I'm taking Nobuntu's question. Nobuntu?
Okay. Hi, Ferdinand. I just wanted to ask you around the competences. So since there are 8, let's say I'm
8 tasks.
Sorry, 8 tasks. So if I'm weak, let's say with the financial accounting one, will I be able to pass, or will I be basically rated or marked as a low competent? How does that work? Because, you explained the 3 bubbles, which I think they relate to the 8 tasks. So let's say I'm weak with the technical competence. I think that would be the financial reporting one. So how does that affect me overall? Yeah.
Good question, Ubuntu. And you picked a key competency of chartered accountants. So from a chartered accountancy profession, they say at the bare minimum, you are an accountant. So because you are an accountant, financial accounting is the core competency from a technical level. So usually the strawman profile, so what we call the strawman profile, will say you cannot be not competent or limited competent in financial reporting or financial accounting. So financial accounting, usually you need to be competent and above. Okay. And then, and yes, thank you, Rendani, for actually push it to the next, that's where I have it. Next, yes, there we go. So if you look at the green on the left, on the right, it says competent candidates in 8 task case study usually we would expect you to have 4 competence outcomes in a case study. Usually, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's low, depending on how difficult the case study was. 4 competence and more, but also not have more than 1 or 2 limited competence. And usually we add to that and say the limited competent also cannot be in financial accounting, because financial accounting is the core. We can forgive you being limited competent, let's say maybe in tax, sometimes in audit, but accounting is unforgivable. And sometimes we say financial management and decision making and control, they could redeem you because they are usually, it's something that candidates struggle with. And if you've done well in, it shows a deeper level of understanding and more competence as well. So they're different iterations. And Nobutu, the one last thing I want to say, and before I ask if I've answered your question fully, is that remember these 8 tasks usually are not in isolation. Yes, sometimes you'll find a completely financial accounting task that stands alone. But sometimes there is within that task a couple of disciplines, meaning integration between financial accounting and tax, or financial accounting and critical thinking being quite heavily muddled together, so that we evaluate both your professional competence and also your technical skill. Nobuntu, have I answered your question sufficiently?
Yes, you have, Freddie. So I wanted to ask you, since you're saying that the questions are never clear cut to say this is a financial competency question.
No? Not never.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes are. So maybe on the 8, you could find that you are able to tell 4 or 5 as clear cut this discipline, but some are also integrated.
Yes. So you know what you just mentioned now. You're saying that basically this exam is testing as well the fact that your core competence would be financial reporting or financial accounting. So if you understand that, when you write especially case studies, you find that especially with the unseen exam preset or unseen questions, you find that you can basically put in accounting even if it's not there. I don't know if you use it like a reference or something just to highlight that there's an accounting element to it. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yes. Because now you're saying, remember what you're asking is that, what you're raising is that, remember what you are being tested on is to ensure that you are more than anything, you are an accountant, and above that, you are basically covering your business competencies as well. So then that means that, if I see a question, remember now I'm a student, I'm writing, and you've told me that, remember the one thing that you need to ensure is that they need to see that competence, which is financial reporting or financial accounting. So with every question, if I can, I'm going to come up with some element or highlight what would be, a financial accounting competency. Yes.
Yes, but remember, in most instances, especially around financial accounting, they would expect you more than highlighting that here there is a potential impairment. They would want you to go deeper than that, because you need to be an expert in that accounting and show, oh yes, you incorrectly calculated this impairment because you took the lower of value in use and fair value less cost to sell, rather than taking the higher of the two. You get what I'm saying? Do you see? I'm going deep. You can't say, oh no, I'm going to call an accounting expert to come and help us because we've got an impairment issue. You should know beyond the awareness level. You get me?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. You've answered me. Thanks,
Nobuntu. So it's really indeed requiring further than that. But then there will be certain areas, let's say on tax, then you can come up with a couple of tax points. And then once you do that, you can say, also, because it's such a complicated tax matter, can we get a tax or legal opinion on this, which shows another level of business, and we call it a pervasive level of an attention to say you are able to then also cover yourself. So when you look at those indicators, I spoke mainly about being competent. If you go below, you're being limited competent. And if you go above, you're being highly competent and you're being on the honors roll. Honors roll being a distinction list, or what we used to call top candidates. But then the below competent, there's also this thing that we call borderline competent, where Nobuntu, as I read your response, I'm getting some things that shows me that you are competent. And then I'm also getting things that are showing lack of competence. So I'm really, when I'm evaluating it, I'm really on a borderline, and I just need another person like a Rendani to just go look at it and tell me whether would they flip me down to limited competent or up to competent. So it's sort of like I'm still undecided. We are on a borderline. So we've got that, but that is a temporary competence rating. And then below that, we also have a not competent, which that's when it's really bad. I have to redo your work rather than help you correct it. And then someone could have not attempted. Okay, let me see. There is another hand up from Zane.
Hi, Ferdinand. Thank you so much. So two-part question. I presume that obviously there's an assumption of underlying knowledge given the fact that the candidate that's writing APC has done ITC in a close proximity. So by virtue of the fact that we are now CIMAs coming into this, how much do you think that is a disadvantage to us? Given that we have to now almost gain, still have a gain of that knowledge, which is almost impossible, given the fact that CIMA has now changed the whole thing around. That's kind of the one part. And the second part is, my assumption is also that given the fact that as an entry-level person that's kind of addressing the board, these are somewhat high-level answers that you'd be giving the board, giving considerations, but not necessarily going off on a tangent into IFRS 16 or am I correct?
And being too technical and referencing paragraphs.
Exactly.
The board is not interested in that. But I guess maybe one last thing around that is that just remember that someone is going to review my work before it goes to the board. That must always be that other cushion behind your thoughts, that it's not like you're sending it directly to the board, but the review needs to come up with just edits and things that can coach you to become the executive that sends things directly to the board, but not to say rework the whole thing. Okay, so that is on your second question. Zane, I think, and I love your first question because that's what we're going to be dealing with in the rest of the session. So this session, what I covered now is just to highlight that there's an extensive level of expectation from a technical element, because from a technical element, candidates would have just passed ITC in a close proximity, okay, and have demonstrated their highest level of technical competence and ensure that they maintain it, but with a continuous professional development, okay? And then we will get into then, what if I haven't written ITC? So what level of support do I need? And what level of support am I going to get from a program of yours to make sure of that? So that's the next as we progress through our presentation. Is that fine, Zane?
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Ferdinand. Thank you.
Cool. All right, Rendani, maybe just push to the next. I want to get into how a previous APC looked like for the last 5 years. We'll pick one and then we'll just unpack it as to what did the 8 tasks look like, so that Nobuntu and Zane can have a look. So yes, actually this was the 2021 rewrite after the December December issues. then this was the rewrite. Actually, Rendani, go to the 2021 so that not the rewrite exactly. So on this one, so we had 8 tasks, and in the 8 tasks, the first task was dealing with going concern matter. The business had going concern indicators and needed to deal with reportable irregularities. So it was asking as to what are the auditors going to look out for. So it means you needed to really, during the 5-day, recap on what we call ISA 540, which is an audit standard ongoing concern, and understand what auditors' responsibilities are from the Audit Profession Act in terms of Section 45, from reportable irregularities. So this had a significant level of technical competencies from audit perspective. And because you were looking at it inside from a business and asking yourself questions and preparing both management and the board on the tough questions the auditors are going to ask, you needed to wear different hats and critique and demonstrate highest level of critical thinking, which was another professional skill that you needed to demonstrate. The second task was a highly technical task from IFRS 2, share-based payment accounting. So there were some equity settled scheme or discussion around whether it needs to be equity settled, a share-based payment scheme, or cash settled, with some intricacies around what are the, how do I account for this based on the grant date accounting or based on the at reporting date accounting, and also to say how do I deal with the people that are resigning as the scheme is continuing. So their core was IFRS 2 from a technical perspective, and with some level of business acumen that you needed to make from a decision making. There were key considerations that one needed to think about in terms of this scheme from a strategy and making sure that you manage the risk. And then the third task was a combination of tax and accounting. So it had a couple, actually 3 scenarios, and was asking from a lease accounting IFRS 16, from financial instruments IFRS 9, and revenue IFRS 15 accounting, and with some tax integration around that. Okay, so you needed to have an integrated thinking between those 2 subjects, and also some level of critical thinking. The fourth task was an audit task, and this was internal controls. And on this internal controls, basically what you had is you were given not an audit program, but you were given some control document, process description. That's the word I wanted to come to. And you needed to highlight the internal controls that needs to be there to deal and make sure that you are able to manage the risk of the company from protection of personal information. And this controls needed to be from logical access perspective. So you needed to really understand computer controls very well. And the fourth task, there were due diligence that was happening because there was an expansion. And on the due diligence, what they gave you a couple of procedures that addresses key assertions from an audit point of view that one needs to take into account. But then what you needed to do is to evaluate whether the procedures are adequate, and where there are shortcomings in the procedures, how to improve them and make sure that you are covered from a due diligence of trying to buy from this acquisition before you invest a lot of money in it. So it's had a lot of business acumen in it, technical, from making sure that you cover the basics of due diligence, and also critical thinking to make sure that you protect the business. The task F was a valuation task, I might be confusing the two between F and G. One, you had to, I think G, you had to look at a net present value analysis of either getting off a grid well, continuing being on the ESCOM grid or national grid, or being off the grid and engaging in renewable energy, and as to which one is actually going to yield more value for the shareholders. So again, highly technical from a financial management point, with a level of critical thinking, because those cash flows and net present value calculation were already determined for you, but you had to pick holes because there were errors in it before you make a conclusion. Whereas the one before was the evaluation. Yes, it was an earnings-based valuation, task F. And on this earnings-based valuation for an acquisition, you had to review it and also pick up the errors that the junior that prepared the valuation made. Highly technical, critical thinking, because you needed to really critique that valuation to make sure you get to the right point. And the last one was an ethical concern. So again, this case study was based on schooling environment, and it was quite topical during COVID. And as COVID came about, everything was moving to online, and then now parents are complaining about, and now the school is not going to be incurring a whole lot of other expenses that usually are incurring, are saving a lot of cost. Should we not be getting a share of those savings that the school is making? Or is that all going as profits to the shareholders? Again, kind of a morality concern and ethical dilemma that the board needs to deal with. And I think the directors or some executive members went public and just say, no, stop complaining, get out of here. We just need to move on this basis. So again, how to manage that perception of looking out for the public interest and caring, and how to engage with the public. So the case study was around those type of things. But I wanted to emphasize that there was a heavy load of technical with all those professional and enabling competencies that I've been talking about. Rendani, is there, and in the slide pack, and I saw Rendani sharing the slide pack with you, we've got a lot of showing you a trend around for the past 5 years of the case studies and how they looked like and what they were examining, so that you can assess which areas you are strongest in, which ones you still require significant level of development in, and what type of a program would work for you, and what level of support would you need to just start evaluating as to where to from here. Rendani, is there anything else that you want to come in at this point and take it from here as well?
Not so fairly, but I think in terms of questions, I would like to hear if there's any question or clarity, especially with questions that were coming from the likes of TT. Just
I saw lots of questions coming into the chat box, eh? Were you coping in terms of answering all of them?
Yeah, I think we're good. So I think in terms of just understanding the APC and connecting to what you were talking about, the 8 tasks and what one can expect, I think this gives a very good sense. And I just want to see if there's anyone who wants clarity around that. Are we good? Is Tawanda?
Tawanda, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, gentlemen. I really appreciate this. So mine is really a very, very specific question. You know, you spoke about, I'm trying to understand the word review, especially when it comes to the technical part of the, you know, the math, the accounting, and all of that. Obviously, if I'm writing, you know, like a report for the board and stuff, maybe there really isn't a lot of calculations there It's more of explaining what I have been given. So if my pre-release has given me, you know, income statement and all of that, maybe the task of the day will also give me specific issues, and the task itself might be talking to impairment, for example, or leases for that matter. But to what extent, or from your experience, in any of the answers would I be required to actually perform a calculation? Is there any instances where I actually need to sit down and say, let me go through this whole calculation again? Or, you know, like where I need to identify gaps, obviously, maybe it might be useful, but would there be a task which would specifically say, do a recalculation? Thank you.
Thank you, Tawanda, and Randani will add after I say. So in most instances, yes, the calculation will be performed, and you'll realize that the calculation is not as complicated, but is the thought process in the calculation that the person below you or your peer or your boss has gotten wrong in that process of determining that impairment number or coming up with the lease amount. The thought process, there were a lot of technical errors and also pervasive errors. When I say pervasive errors, instead of adding, they subtracted, something like that. And you need to pick it up. Okay. So, but the calculation itself usually is not as complicated. And also, secondly, to answer your other question, we seen an instance where you've got to perform the calculation yourself? Yes. But again, when we ask you to perform a calculation, it's with a specific purpose. It's not like ITC or undergrad where you're performing a calculation just so that we can understand or know that you know how to do an impairment. No, there is a specific purpose, and usually this calculation is not as technically or as complex. The one I can remember and that was I think it was in 2017 when the lease accounting standard IFRS 16 was about to be adopted by most companies. They said, can you, as a newly qualified chartered accountant, we're trying to go and show the board as to what is going to be the impact of IFRS 16 versus what we've got in our balance sheet and income statement using IAS 17. And you needed to sort of like have tables there to say, okay, currently, this is what we've got expenses in the income statement around the leasing, with financial liabilities or assets on the balance sheet. And this is how it's going to look from an IFRS 17 point of view. And this is going to be the impact. And this is going to be the impact on the ratios on current assets and current liabilities. And this is how it's going to impact our debt covenants. And this is how our loans might be triggered for a breach of covenants and require payments. So you see, you were asked to then do calculations. But were those calculations as technical? Rendani, what would be your answer? You needed to have an understanding of a technical as to how you get there. But it wasn't as complicated, my view, though. What's your view, Rendani?
Yes, so yes, I do agree with that. And I think Tawanda is right in terms of, yes, you will not be expected to do complex calcs for the board. But as you can imagine, they will be interested in understanding the impact on the gearing ratios. So as much as no one will come and say, show me the workings, they will want to just at least have technical accuracy of this is the impact on the gearing, because some does impact their decisions around finding, around meeting debt covenants and so on. So the technicality of calculations came in there so that you don't really just miss, say, a gearing ratio by a long shot, and it leads the board the other way. Make sense, Tawanda?
Gentlemen, you have definitely answered it. I'm very happy with the response. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Cool. Rendani, you can continue from here and now deal with, I suppose, unless there's any question, but deal with how then do we approach the program?
Yes, yes. And maybe before we get them, so let me just maybe use this as an opportunity to just capture some of the key takeaways, just to see what the APC as an assessment is all about. So first of all, we find that, and you'll see when you go to the performance of previous candidates in the APC, that there's been over the years some general decline in performance. And one of the key reasons, just one, is that the assessment, it requires a very good understanding of what it's all about, and also its assessment or evaluation of competence process, because some candidates come directly from a CTA space where you need to hit a 50 in order to survive. But you now get into this space where it's a C or it's a BC or an LC. And as Fedi was also talking to, that it's never a clear answer of, is it 4 tasks that need to be a C for you to make it? Is it 5? And the fact that even when we are assessing professional competence, you can hit the technical points, but if there are some critical thinking indicators that are so pervasive and necessary to get through a task and you don't address, you might find yourself not being a C. So it's very important that you understand the assessment and the evaluation of professional competence in that context. So that's what we are hoping, that's what you took away from the discussion we just had. So that's one. Number two, as you will see on the slides that we've shared, there is no clear trend that one can pick up to say, oh, I need to cover myself on, say, IS 16, which is the international reporting standard for property, plant, and equipment, that I need to cover myself on leases. Because as you might have seen over the past 5 sittings, there's not been, say, one particular topic that has been the examiner's favorite topic. And what really drives, therefore, your preparation, it's obviously the work before, but in that 5 days, you will need to work through the triggers. So in that pre-scene or pre-release document, you're gonna get, as Feli was talking about, it's the guidance to say, we are interested in looking at this impact, looking at this and that, and that's what you need to take as part of preparation for that. So it's not like right now you can say, let me start going through IS 16 because I didn't do ITC, let me go through. So it won't work like that, because the syllabus in ITC, it's massive. Good to say 6 months to 12 months is required to cover it. But you're gonna find that APC will just touch on 2 core issues in accounting, core issues in auditing, 1 core issue in tax, and you can just imagine that the investment, therefore, is very difficult to justify, both in time as well as effort. So it is very important that you understand that trigger identification and undertaking the work on it, it's critical. Then number 3, it's the balance of the other bubbles. And the bubbles that also Feli mentioned, and you have seen that were common in that APC assessment he was looking at. 1, business acumen, critical thinking, ethical leadership, effective communication skills. Those will always be significant in producing a response that is considered to be competent. So as much as there will be a technical element, and maybe to just give a high level example, you might find that your CFO that you are reporting to in the context of the assessment has done an NPV calc, and they say NPV at a WACC of 40% is equals to 10. This project needs to be accepted. And therefore, when you look at the technical is right. If NPV is positive, we need to accept. But the critical thinking element of it will then be, but a WACC of 40%, is it likely, is it practical, and so on and so on. So that is where, therefore, your response, even though you might say, technically I'm there, but if you miss the pervasive, the critical thinking business acumen, it can be very difficult for you to secure that C. Then, a question that came from Larry, it's what can you bring into the assessment? So in that 5-day assessment, you've got all the resources except engagement with anyone other than engagements with someone who's not sitting for the assessment. So through your engagements with your peers or the candidates that are going to write, you might start putting together a file. So everything that you work through in that 5 days, you are allowed to bring it into the assessment. There's no limit. So if you are one of the special ones, you can bring 5 files, including your IFRS handbooks. And what it just means, it means that you need to plan carefully in terms of what you're taking and whether you will have enough time to go through it in that 8 hours. And sometimes one could be deceived to say that, or tempted rather, to say that I'm not so strong from an accounting perspective. So if I see a technical trigger, I'm going to download all the big 4 technical reports, put them in my file. When I get a task, I'm going to see what is relevant, and then I start copying. So that is something that one needs to make sure that they avoid even before they get to the case study. Because 1, you'll never get time to go through all the material. And number 2, it is almost impossible for the assessment to be set when now the answers are outside there and one just needs to bring them inside for them to get a C. So that is something that we want to just emphasize about the nature of the APC. And you'll see the examiner's comments that they are not a fan of the pegs to the extent that they are used in order to respond rather than to enhance the quality of a response. Then number 5, technical competence. You saw even in the previous case study Fede was just looking at, it was pervasive through the entire case study. And you need it. It will help you also when you get the pre-release to see the triggers on the day, to see how the issues are unfolding. And when you respond, to be able to communicate effectively the technical aspects without saying, opening the standard and just copying what the standard says, but to really be able to articulate it. So having a strong technical knowledge can help you to enhance your ability to grasp the issues as well as the quality of your response. And the next thing, it's all about this professional competence. It's really not something that, as you will see, it's built and it recognizes, and I think in its design, that the candidate has gone through CTA, then they've gone through ITC, and they've gone through a training program. And now they are going to complete a professional program before they sit for the APC. So in its original design, that was what? That was the APC. And because the majority of the candidate population will go through that traditional route, it therefore means that you need to understand that route, and you need to then find ways to then commit to then saying, taking the core technical competence, professional competence that will have then been developed through that process. So from a training program perspective, that's a benefit because CIMA has also as a requirement for practical experience. And then from professionals skills, you've got your own bubbles, which has got technical, people skills, leadership, digital, as well as the business skills, which really then talks to the business acumen, the effective communication. And now it's just a matter of bringing it together to say that how do you now use that and bridge any gaps from what is demanded by the APC, recognizing that the route is not what as traditional as imagined in the design of the APC. Then number 7 is to then say, because unlike CIMA, when you're a CIMA candidate, you get resources around the marking grid, you get the resources around the specimen response, excuse me, and the post-exam guidelines. And Fedu mentioned that those are not publicly available information from CICA. So I shared a link earlier on, and you'll see when you go there, they don't have the official solution that they will have used in marking. They don't publish the marking grid. So you really therefore need to understand how they get to a C, which is a process that the program then helps you to get and master. To say, when we imagine a C, how does it look like? Is it always consistent that if there's a marking grid, I need to hit 4 indicators and it's a C? So those are then the questions that will then answer through the program. But what I just want to highlight here is that you will need to understand that there is a great deal of self-reflection that will be expected from you. And also engaging with the professional team, as well as consulting in making sure that you bridge any gaps. And we're just then going to talk about again how then the professional program helps in getting those things right. Number 8 is the information on the day. So yes, you've got your research material. Excuse me. You've got your pre-release information. You get to, on the day, new set of information, further developing the issues. So common as what? As the strategic case study. But as you saw, there are 8 tasks here. The assessment is for 8 hours compared to a traditional 3 hours. And for you to really achieve a C overall, you need to engage thoroughly with each and every document there. Because as you saw, 1 LC might be acceptable, but 2, you are now stepping in a very dangerous territory and will be very difficult to achieve a C overall. So you will then need to make sure that the information of the day, you engage with it fully. Then number 9, it's that the APC, you will realize that it's got what? It has this different dimension. And one will then say that, but even as in my finance career, I've never needed to deal with the auditors, deal with tax matters, deal with IFRS issues, deal with financial management issues. And as you can imagine, excuse me, it is a very multidisciplinary assessment. Excuse me. Then one of the things that we then consider to be key, or you should now start thinking about it as key, it's working in a team. Because remember, you are allowed to speak to anyone who's going to sit for the assessment. So you will need to then say, because you've got a CIMA background, you might then say that when we form groups, let's get someone who's gone through ITC. Let's get someone who's set for this before. Let's get someone who's sitting for this assessment for the first time, so that when we deal with the pre-release, we are able to then bring different minds. So you might then say, from a business acumen, this will be your biggest contribution to the team. But your biggest takeaway might be to say, how do you handle, say, things like ISA statements? Fede was just talking about, I think, ISA 540 just a while ago. There was also a previous assessment with ISA 315, ISA 570, and so on and so on. So you might want someone who will then be able to just share those kind of insights with ease. So it becomes so critical to say that in tackling the APC, it will require a different approach. Maybe when you did the strategic, say, case study, I remember when I did it, I went onto the CIMA website, downloaded those case studies, drew up a timeline, found a study buddy, and then we worked through those case studies over a good 2 to 3 months. But it was a situation where now it was quite easy because one didn't need, say, a multidisciplinary team to say, I've not been in audit, so how will then external auditors approach this, and so on and so on. So when you get to the APC, those things will then become what? Will become critical. So these are some of the key takeaways to say that when you think about the APC, this will want you to keep on top of your mind. Are we aligned? Are we aligned? Any questions, or are we all good?
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. So, yes, Rungano, please go for it.
Good evening, Rendan.
Yes, good evening. Yes.
Yes, it's more of a general question. It's not 100% linked to what we are currently discussing on. I wanted to check what is the deadline for the registration, because I think on the requirement I've also seen, like I'm asking for the registration for November sitting 2022, was I've checked on the website, CIMA2CA website, it also specifies that for people with foreign qualification, they need an assessment from CIMA2CA. And obviously from CIMA2CA side, it takes some few days. So I wanted to check when is the deadline for the registration for November 2022. And then the last question is also on their requirements. They said someone must be a holder of a bachelor's degree. And then in the event that someone might not have a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree, what could be the requirements on that? So it's more of a general question than a question that is specific to what we are discussing.
Yes, so it's an interesting one. I think because we've not had any specific queries that have been coming up regarding those kind of issues, and specifically I'm talking about number 2, and we've never needed to deal with Adri and the team. So I'll say that she might be then the best person to do so. She's really quite efficient and very responsive. I think if you drop even an email tonight,
appointment.
she might be able to. Sorry, someone's mic is open.
Morning.
Hello, Sorry, check your mic. Hello. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so as I was saying that you can drop an email tonight. I'm sure, or it's more likely that come Monday she will have addressed it. So because remember that the letters to register come directly from CIMA2CA. So if they are happy, maybe then the process will just run as smoothly. But if anyone maybe here that they've had a similar experience and they came right, maybe they can just drop a chat to assist in that regard.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Sure. And in terms of the registration for our program, we close on the 1st of July. And from a CIMA2CA perspective, they close on the 11th of November. But we'll get to that part when we get to the general information. Okay. Sure. M, please, you're next.
Hi, Rendani. Hi, everyone.
Evening.
Evening. Thank you so much for the platform. I just wanted to ask the feasibility for us sitting the December case study, the APC exam. How feasible is that?
Interesting question. Interesting question, M. And as I was saying, it depends on the background. When I say that I know some might have done both journeys, saying that they might have done CTA and maybe they did ITC sometime and they just didn't complete the journey and they've now completed CIMA. So that person, I think from a starting point, they might be starting at say a bit more advanced point, and therefore they can really understand where CIMA2CA is coming from with regards to the APC. So to someone like that, it might be quite not much of a mountain to then jump into, say, the APC professional program and work through its demands. But what could be tricky could be, say, for someone who's gone through the CIMA journey, and I'm just talking from my experience and what I've got to read about the latest syllabus, and then just comparing it with the APC assessment. So the level of technical competence required for the APC is quite high. And I hope that the candidates that say have been with us in the CT and ITC program, I think they will likely appreciate it more in terms of just seeing some of the things that Fili was talking about and the level at which CIMA2CA pitches it at. And to someone like that, it might be a bit more of a mountain to then be trying to catch up on the technical side of it, as well as working through the case study assessments. So if you then consider that to be a bit, say, overwhelming or to be a bit too much over the time that we've got, and when I say the time that we've got, I'm just saying let's count, say, from next week, and we then say parts of June, July, August, September, October. So it's 5 months because, as I was saying, someone has to be registered with CIMA2CA by the 11th. So it's a matter of 5 months. So the question is that in this 5 months, will you then be able to then work through the technical as well as familiarize yourself with the APC process and overcome that? So that could be the key consideration that one actually takes. And I think from our own experience as well, we've had CIMA professionals that are already in senior positions, and balancing such a new learning and their roles can be very, very tricky. So that is something that I'll want you to then consider. Thank you. Sure. Then, okay, thank you, Em. So, is it, yeah, Itai? Yes, go for it.
Hi, Rindani.
Yes.
So I just wanted to just clarify. I think you've answered most of my question,
Sure.
previous question. However, I just wanted to, so we can actually register in 2022 and write in 2022 at this point in time.
Yes, so it is possible. And I'll just then cover the detail where when we get to the program, because the program, we've got what we call the APC professional program, and that's what CIMA has accredited. So as part of that accreditation, we've got the rights, or rather the privilege, to issue certificate, and these certificates that we issue are valid for 3 years and allow you to sit for APC in the year that they are issued. So if we issue it to you, say in 2022, you will be eligible to sit for APC 2022, 2023, and 2024 before it expires. So that is how the certificates work. So in terms of how then the program works, and therefore what one needs to do to qualify for that certificate, will then walk you through that detail.
Okay, because so when in between now and November/December, when will you be? When will we? When you issue that certificate, when do we actually do something to get that certificate?
So throughout, from the moment go, the moment one is registered into the program, then Fedi will talk about how then we've designed our program and what we then require before one can then be signed off or considered eligible for the EPC certificate. So that's the part that we will then talk to when we cover the professional program in terms of how it works and what is then the assessment criteria or eligibility criteria for the certificate. But it will be in the next 5 months because we need to issue them by the CICA deadline, which is that 11th of November, send them to CICA for admin purposes, and they load them so that when you register for the APC assessment for December, you are done. So we work with those deadlines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. But I think some of those questions will be clarified when we go into the detail about how the program works.
Oh, and one last question.
Sure.
I haven't received any of the sheets that everyone's talking about. Will you be emailing there's some documents that you've been talking about that have been emailed. I think Freddie also mentioned them. Are you going to email everybody those documents after this?
Yes. So if you're in the meeting and you're registered, so we've got the meeting will have logged your email, and then we'll use the details that you use for the meeting to email it out, as well as the recorded link.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So anything else that, yeah, so we'll also just include the timetable so that you can have a full view of how then the program works in detail.
Okay, perfect.
Sure, cool. Yes, yeah.
Sorry, quick one. So do you mind if we go through maybe the EPC and then APC, then maybe take questions at the end? So I've got questions, but I'm tempted to ask, but I just feel like we will just spend more time on questions now before we
I've also said the same thing. I've also said the same thing in the chat, Randani, because I mean we're just all over the place now. So I think maybe you do your presentation first, and then a lot of our questions will be answered, and then we can have like a general Q&A at the end of the session. Because right now everyone's just asking questions. We're just all over the place.
Sure.
So maybe do your presentation first, and then we can, we can have some structure to this, because right now, for me, it's just, everyone just wants to ask their own questions. So maybe just do your presentation, and we can just take, anyone's question, like the gentleman also alluded to.
100%. Great, thank you. So, so as I was saying, in terms of how the CIMA space, where I miss my mind now, the CIMA space works. So, the APC, even the candidates that have gone through the traditional route, they cannot just walk into the assessment. Everyone has to go through a professional program, and the professional program has to issue a certificate. So there are 3 accredited professional program providers, and we are one of those 3. We got accredited 2 years ago after offering support from a CTA to UNISA candidate, and also BCTA, as well as over the past 5 years, working with a lot of candidates on the ITC side. So the program, as the documents from CICA will have clarified, 3 of them, and we one of the programs that then are eligible to do so. In terms of our program, it's one of the it's a very robust program. We really believe in its effectiveness, and as Fedi unpacks it, you'll then see, as well as the results that we've produced recently, which just then talks to the quality and the what one might call the demand and the commitment throughout the period left through to APC. Then, in terms of how we've designed our program, we've really built a program and an organization based on 2 fundamental principles. So it is really to deliver quality program through the expert team that we've got. And secondly, it is to really offer a candidate-centric approach in terms of support. And one will realize that in this program, there's quite a lot of, apart from the technical, that one needs to really manage. And over the years, we've really then built a candidate support system that will help you and walk with you throughout to the very end. And starting from the expert team. So Fedi, he's our academic head. So APC was officially launched by CICA in 2014. And from that point, he has been the sole external reviewer. So what that role used to entail was that he will then, before the candidates sit for the assessment, the CICA examination committee will prepare the paper. They will send it to him. He will write it, then he will review it and write a detailed report, present it to the exam committee in terms of whether it's an appropriate assessment for an entry-level chartered accountant, that it has no unreasonable expectation from a timing perspective, from a content perspective, and that is still relevant to what businesses and employers are looking for and expecting from an entry-level chartered accountant. So he held that role from 2014 up until the time we got accredited. So the last time that he then assisted with reviewing the APC was at the end of 2019. So as you can imagine, it brings that wealth into the team and also into the development of our case studies. So our case studies are very robust, ensuring that at the end of the program, you are absolutely ready to ace the CICA APC. The next on the team is myself. I'm in the accounting, math, as well as strategy and risk management team. So aspects of the program that require that those technical competence, that's where I contribute to. So mainly my focus is on management accounting and strategy. Accounting is something that found me, and I decided to just work with it, and we fell in love. So nothing much there. But in terms of my experience as well, I've marked ITC as well as APC for a number of years. From an ITC perspective, the previous two sittings, I was part of the senior team, so leading a team where we were marking the math discipline. And from a CIMA perspective, I set for the CIMA in the previous syllabus. So at the time, I was then the top candidate in E3, while it was still a strategy written paper. I was the top South African candidate in that year, then proceeded to write the CIMA strategy paper. It was top CIMA at the time, and I was also the top candidate at that particular point in time. So the love for CIMA is something, so this is quite exciting for me as to see what the two professional bodies are doing. So really excited to really find APC here. The next on the team, it's Asen. He's our IFRS specialist. So anything come the accounting standard, he will passionately engage with you on sorry, he will debate, he will help you to understand how then the standards work, how the IFRS specialist actually thought through this. So most of the elements relating to accounting, he will be the one that will then take you through it. So very brilliant candidate. When he set for ITC, he was one of the black candidates that achieved a top 10 position with honors, meaning that he achieved a mark greater than 75% in that sitting. So very, very brilliant person there. Then we've got our governance leader, who is Kumu. So Kumu is our specialist when it comes to auditing, governance, and ethics. So when you think Companies Act, when you think the King Code, when you think the Professional Code of Ethics and the ISAs, so he specializes in those. He's currently a senior manager at the regulator, ARBA. So he's very passionate about that part. Then also from the management, accounting, and finance team, it's Elton. So Elton previously a finalist in CICA's top 35 under 35. He's been a lecturer for most of his life or most of his career, about plus 10 years experience now. And even more so, he's been part of the APC senior marking team leader. And he was part of the team leading the APC 2020. And currently he just completed his PhD in critical thinking. So you will have seen that critical thinking is something that is core to the APC. So he leads those initiatives and guidance and development of material for the APC professional program. Then we've got Ere, who's also part of the management team, but more so she focuses on supporting the mentorship team. So mentorship, it's led by candidates that have set for the APC and were successful, or rather, and qualified chartered accountants. So as part of enrolling into the APC professional program, you then have an opportunity to choose a mentor, and then you'll be allocated a mentor to walk through the journey with, just to make sure that some of the especially developmental area, you've got someone who understands the program, who understands the assessment, and it's helping you develop through that journey. Then we've got our our coaching supervisor, Zanele, as I mentioned before. So she leads all the initiatives relating to building your emotional well-being, building the best self in you. So this is quite critical. So the APC, to some extent, we find that it's a very demanding assessment, and we really believe that it then requires not just the technical part of it, but it requires you to really be in the right state of things, to be in the right state of mind in your preparation, whether before you get the pre-release, working through the pre-release in that 5-day period, being calm in the exam, managing your time. So Zanele is really then that coaching specialist that then walks through that journey with you in order to just make sure that you deliver your very best on the day. Business acumen also, it's one of the key enabling competencies that we mentioned, and we have innovative business acumen webinars, which are led by our business acumen specialist, which is Lerato. So Lerato is an equity research analyst, completed a training at one of the leading banks in the industry, and she is really quite passionate about equity analysis. So she's the one that will be driving these webinars throughout the year. So there's about 5 that we've got scheduled until the APC or the end of the program. Then from a support team, we've got a whole so we've got several team members looking after you throughout the program. So any admin related queries, any support, just to make sure that the program is working out for you, just to check in whether you're doing well. So this is the team that looks after you, and they are really concerned, and their primary concern is just to make sure that you get the very best in the program. Then, in terms of how we then go through what is really then our approach to candidate support, especially in the context of the APC, we've really captured it into these 9 boxes. And we really believe that this is something that sets our program apart, and that we really believe it will be quite instrumental to some of you that might not have been through the traditional CA journey. So first of all, it's our rigorous personalized feedback. So for each and every assessment that you will see, it's scheduled in the timetable. We give you detailed feedback. So in those 8 tasks, for instance, you then get markers that will then give you details of what did you do well when it comes to task number 1. What did you not do well, and what should you do going forward? So as you can imagine, that the report will then be very specific to your response. So it will then highlight, yes, when it comes to business acumen, you're on top of it. This is not your concern. But when it comes to technical competence, there are shortcomings, there are shortfalls that you need to address. And this is our recommendation. There are these videos, there's this material that we'll want you to go through. So for each and every task, we give you specific personalized feedback in order to ensure that you are able to work with it for your benefit ahead of future assessments. Then number 2 is that we've got a comprehensive mentorship, coaching support, as well as caretaking support team, as I've mentioned. And for us, it's all about that this is to ensure that you are well taken care of throughout the program, and it helps you to then develop some of the core professional competencies that are part of the professional program. Then we also have a strong emphasis on developing business acumen. through the business acumen webinars that will be facilitated by Lerato, critical thinking as led by Elton, effective communication, which is also facilitated by expert business writers, and ethical leadership, which is led by Kumu. So in addition to the technical, these are some of the pervasive elements that we then focus on. Then number 4, it's simulation of the APC case study. So this is very important for us to say that when it comes to the assessment, so the CIMA2CA assessment, it's venue-based. You either bring your own laptop or they will supply you with a laptop. But what we then consider to be significant, it's writing, say, in similar setting to where the actual APC will then be written. So we then provide venue-based assessments for candidates based in South Africa. So it's a national venue basis. In other words, we facilitate the assessment across a number of provinces based on the candidates that we've got. And if you need a laptop, we do provide a laptop to you at no additional charge. So out of the 4 assessments, 3 of them are venue-based, and 1 of them is facilitated on an online basis, meaning that you might be at home, you might be at the office, you'll then get instruction of how the assessment will work, and you'll follow those instructions, and at a particular time, you'll be required to submit your assessment, and that's how it works. Then number 5, one of the things that is very critical, it's the journey that we walk with you in order to develop from what? An APC, to understand and master the APC. So for instance, you've got your pre-release. The question is, how do you go about it? How do you analyze it? How do you identify triggers? When you've identified triggers, how do you then undertake the work on it? And also, once you get on the day, what should be your approach? How do you make sure you manage your time effectively? How do you make sure you achieve the right level of coverage, depth? So that is one of the aspects that we go through. And when you look at our timetable, you'll see that it's got guidance around, or it's got details around what we call reflection packs, which are then some pre-recorded material and some written guidance in terms of what you need to do or what is expected of you. So we really give you an extensive support when it comes to preparing for the APC. Then number 6, because as we mentioned, the assessment process or the evaluation of assessment or the marking process rather, it's very unique. It's not it's not like your mark-based system. It requires quite a lot of judgment. And we then walk through that journey with you. We even, after each and every assessment, give you scripts that you are required to mark, and we come and discuss them in class. Talk to you about how to give marks against or credit against the indicators, and how to then, after giving credit against the indicators, how to then evaluate whether a response is competent, borderline, highly competent, or demonstrate limited competence. And also to then just give you an opportunity to really work on your development of evaluation of professional competence. We then do what? We then give you an opportunity to say, if you evaluate yourself and you find that you are super, you are an HC, but you then get an outcome of, say, LC from us, you can appeal that with detailed responses, therefore giving you another opportunity to really enhance your demonstration of professional competence. And we spoke about how heavy, from a technical perspective, the APC is at, and how we then bridge that is that you, when you register, you get access to the full suite of CTA videos. So that's part of the charge. So the moment you enroll, your profile will be activated and you will have all the CTA videos. meaning that if you're saying that I want to just make sure when it comes to internal control, when it comes to these technical issues that may be triggered in a case study, I have a starting point. So that is what you get. And also, we give you an opportunity to mark assessments for our CTA and ITC programs, because that will then help you to then build and refresh your technical knowledge. So you can see that technical competence is something that we consider to be core, and we've built and incorporated processes to make sure that you get that as part of the program. And if you are then saying that, guys, you've given me the support, you've helped me to mark, you've helped me to develop business acumen, and I still need help, the program includes unlimited access in terms of consultation to the technical team. So you can book consultation with, say, us and myself, and then we'll go through whatever your shortcomings are and make sure that what you get to have them resolved way ahead of time. So that is essentially our approach to candidate support in the context of the APC. And in terms of the technical detail, that's where then Fedi will then just articulate how then we run the process from beginning up to the point where we certify candidates. But maybe before we get there, are there any specific questions on the matters that we've covered? If it's anything else, then let's just wait until what? Until maybe we get to it. So anything so far before Fedi jumps in? All good. Itai, is that an old end? Seems like an old end. Oh. All right, Fedi, you may jump in.
Thank you, Rendani. And I think at this stage, it's just to explain where we are in the program. And it will answer a lot of questions that were coming through for Rendani to say, are we going to be ready to sit for 2022 APC in December? And what teaching, what we do as a program, it will answer all those questions. So let me explain the current program. So current program, we have phase 1. And phase 1, that's where we develop your professional competence. And in developing your professional competence, we take you through all these are class sessions, so facilitated sessions online, where firstly we define what a professional competence is, Then we take you through technical competence, then how to be ethical, how to critically think and how to review documents, how to demonstrate business acumen, how to have an effective communication skills. So we get language experts to take you through how to do all that. And we take you through a session where we just talk about an effective team and mentorship. And we bring it all together. So you can see there are 8 sessions that we took our candidates through, and that phase 1 is done. So we do this in April and May, and it's now done. Okay. But then what does that leave you? It leaves you to say, well, if, let's say, you want to jump into the program, you will be going through those things with the recorded videos. Okay, so it won't be live sessions. You will be listening to the recorded videos. And some might say, oh no, but I'm technically competent. So then it means you don't have to look or go and watch the technical competence video. So this as to who watches what then becomes a plan of every single one of us. Okay. But if I just unpack a little bit, professional competence is us taking you through what the journey looks like and what, talking about those three bubbles to say a competent professional is someone that needs enabling competencies, needs technical competencies, needs professional values and attitudes. And then the rest of the sessions is then unpacking it in quite a level of detail to take you through and teach you how to become that person and what techniques to use to be that person. Okay, so more theoretical with the inclusion of examples and teaching aids and making sure that by the end of each of those sessions, you theoretically understand and through the practical use of some examples, how to be, to demonstrate those competencies. Okay, then we get to phase 2. So phase 2, what we do, we say in phase 1, we're developing your professional competence. Now let's demonstrate it with a case study. But we don't want to scare you with this big case study that has 20 pages pre-release information, 15-page information on the day. You're going to spend 8 hours in an exam venue. It's going to just be daunting for someone who's doing this for the first time. Okay, so we use a previous CIMA2CA APC. We break it down into what we call mini case studies to help you to say, how do I read it? And how do I know once I'm reading, how do I make sure I understand what my role is going to be in the organization? How do I make sure I understand the background of the business? How do I make sure that I've got the adequate level of that business acumen and understand the risks of the business, how they are mitigated, what is the strategy of the business, where is it going, etc. All those things. How do I make sure that from that information that I get 5 days before, and we give candidates a longer time because we're still doing baby steps. We give you, let's say 2 weeks to say, that 20-page document that I spoke about, which we call the pre-release, we're going to call it a mini case study, and we're going to give you only 8 pages. And on the 8 pages, they say, be ready because we're going to ask you questions or tasks on IS16. How do I make sure I identify that as a key element that I need to work through in the 2 weeks, which usually is going to be over the 5 days when we get to the real case studies? So we call that process, we help you identify the triggers. Because if, for instance, that 8-page document has got 4 triggers that you need to work through during that 5 days, or which we extended to 12 days. If you miss one trigger, then it means you're not going to be ready on day number 13 when you have to write. How do you make sure that you've identified all triggers and you've listed them down and you're ticking them as you go, that you are adequately prepared? And once you write them down to say there are 4 triggers, how do I make sure that I become a subject area expert in those matters? I mean, if Larry is a fixed asset manager at his organization, and we said be a subject area expert in IS16, probably Larry is more equipped in IS16 and won't have to do as extensive work than Wanda, who is an operations manager at another company, because Wanda then has never seen IS16 and also hasn't done it before. And then Wanda might have to spend a lot of time. So putting that action next to every single indicator, how do we do that? And once you put that action, how do I go about and making sure that I become that expert in IS16? How? Then we take you through a session where we tell you how to do it, how to read the standard, how to research, how to make sure that you are that subject area expert. Okay. And then we allow you to spend not 8 hours, 4 hours to go and write that mini case study so that we can evaluate where you are. So do you understand a trigger? Do you understand how to prepare? Do you understand how to write it? And that's what we've been doing in phase 2. So at this point in time in our program, that's where we are. We've given them mini case study, what we call mini case study A. We've helped them identify triggers, put action point. We've helped them research and what to research, and we've made them sit for it, and we've marked them, and we've just given them the feedback. So all our candidates, call them our first-time candidates at this point, because they had spent the whole April and May with us. They are at the point where they've just written mini case study A and they got the feedback on it, and they are trying to absorb it so that they realize, I'm still not getting how to research. I'm going back to that video. I realize that in this particular task, I missed ethical dilemmas. Let me go back to the ethical leadership screencast and video, just so that I can go and see how the team was saying I must approach that. So if you decide to jump in, you'll be jumping at this point. Okay. But I think it will be critical to understand, what are you jumping in for? With what objective? Is it the objective to wanna perfect this and become eligible for a certificate to go and sit for 2023? Sorry, to go and sit for 2022 on the 14th of December with at CIMA2CA? If that's the case, what does that entail? Or I'm just jumping in to see through the process so that I'm better equipped next year to walk through the journey again and give it a big shot for 2023. That's another question. So the number of iterations, or I'm jumping in, I don't know where I'm at the moment. I want to get a feel, but where are you jumping at? So where to from here? So we're still here. So basically what's going to be happening next week is that we're going to start releasing the pre-release information, that 8-page document again, a short one again, of mini case study B, which then if you jump in now, then you can then jump into that and say, okay, let me see how this mini case study looks like. I'm going to jump into that process, and then I'm going to have, like I say, it's not going to be 5 days. We give them a week and a half, because we're releasing the pre-release on Tuesday next week, but they will have about 9 days of researching, identifying triggers, learning, studying about what is expected of them from that mini case study B, and they will only write on the weekend on Saturday, the 14th of June. So the pre-release is out on the Tuesday, the 7th of June. A weekend passes whilst they're still just working through it and making sure that they're comfortable with and becoming subject matter experts on their own. When I say on their own, without the professional team taking them through, but working with their teams. Remember, Rendani spoke a lot about making sure that you work in teams so that you help each other, but the team being only the EPC candidates as well. And then on the 14th of June, then you'll say, I'm ready about all what they said I must be ready on, and then let me attempt. And then there will be 3 tasks. Again, it will be 3 hours, and then you attempt it. That's where we are. If you push to the next. Then you will mark yourself, we will mark you, and then we'll give you feedback. Once that is done, and then you see, oh, this is how a case study works, and this is how I must be researching, and this is the feedback I got, and this is what I think I need to develop on. You've got a free period where then you are going back to say, these are the issues that the marking team identified on my side, or I identified I need additional support on the following, and then you start going back to those videos or consulting with us to help you, etc. Why? In preparation of phase 3, where then we give you the full case studies to work through. Okay? And as you work through, as you make a decision again, I mean, it's about, given what I've gone through with mini case study, do I think I'm ready to go into main case studies, meaning phase 3? Or should I say, let me just revisit phase 3 material, phase 1 material, because I need to take baby steps. You need to make that decision. And Renani is going to come back to that point. But if you're like, and you didn't have, yes, everyone will always have development points. You've done phase 3, if you mean you've done phase 2, you've done mini case study B, and you feel like I've given that mini case study a best shot, and I don't have significant issues that I need to be working on, I can jump onto phase 3. You do that. And phase 3 will mean now you're getting full case studies that will have a pre-release information released on Friday. You work with your team for 5 days on it to become an expert in those matters that are being triggered. And then on Wednesday of the following week, then you write the case study. And as you write the case study, you spend 8 hours writing it and submitting your attempt. And then after that, you reflect. Oh my word, was it a difficult case study? Where did I go wrong on myself? You do a self-assessment. What are the issues that I need to work through? You consult on those. You talk to your mentors on those things, and you continuously develop. You don't wait for the next case study. And then in the background, we're marking you. And then as we're marking you, and then eventually we give you the feedback, it must align to the self-assessment that you got. If it doesn't align, you talk to your mentors, you talk to the professional team to say, why is it not aligned? Okay. And that process of self-reflection is quite guided. And then we give you another free period to say, you now have results, work through those issues. And then once you work through those issues, you must make sure you are ready for the next case study, which is case study number 2. And then the process repeats itself, and then you get to case study number 3. And then that's when at the end of case study number 3, we say, if you've demonstrated competence in at least 2 case studies, we're happy to give you the certificate to go and sit for December 2022 APC at CIMA2CA. Meaning, I could have been limited competent in case study 1, but I could have been borderline competent in case study 2, which is okay. Then I could have been competent in case study 3. Then I've shown that level of improvement at each time. Then we will give you the certificate to go and write. But if, let's say, you were limited competent, and you showed some borderline competent, then we will say, no, there's an opportunity to write a supplementary case study, which we call case study. We don't call it case study number 4. We call it case study number 3.2, because it's sort of like another opportunity of this final one. And then you show competence, then we give you the certificate to go and write in December. If not, then we say you're not ready. Then we've got this comprehensive program that, again, you will start with everyone, and where we go and start from scratch and work through everything for another year. from January. We're not even going to wait for April, from January all the way for the full cycle until November of the following year, to make sure that you are ready the following year to write for APC 2023. Okay, so that is how we go through it. Okay, Renan, is there any question that I need to take at this point? There seems to be a couple of hands up, but just remind me, what is the next slide that comes through? And you can guide me. Yeah, I don't think I have to deal with this. It's exactly the same.
Sure.
If you push through, if you push through to the next, is general information, eh?
Yeah, so we almost at the end. Should I just quickly cover this and then we'll take questions?
Yeah, take the general question, general information, because this is about fees and programs and where do I fit in and all that. Deal with it, and then we take the questions. Cool.
Sure. Thank you, Freddie. So yes, so when it comes to our program, so I'm just going to explain what we have on the screen. There was a question that came up in terms of whether we're going to have a CIMA specific or a program catering for CIMA specific candidates. And yeah, my answer was clearly a yes, but not in 2022. So I just want then to discuss this so that when you go on our website or material, you understand how 2022 looks like. So first of all, EPC has what it calls a professional program. So the professional program has got 4 courses within it. It's got what we call the APC comprehensive course, which is a program that, or a course that starts at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, that's Jan, and it runs all the way through to end of October, early November. So that is our longest course that runs in a single year. And the reason why it is like that is because Freddie mentioned that there are 3 phases in our program, but the APC comprehensive then is suited for anyone who is saying that I've been registering with a professional program provider and I've not been getting a certificate. I've been out from the system for some time. I've just what do you call it? I've maybe been successful in the APC and I just want something to really take me back a bit before I jump into the program. So the APC comprehensive course has got what we call a phase 0. So Freddie mentioned that also that phase 1 kicks off around March. So we are saying before we kick off that program or the course, then we will then start with this foundation phase from Jan, Feb, and come March, then it then joins with the APC professional course. So the APC comprehensive course just means that it's got an additional phase that is meant to support candidates that need the extra developmental work. Then APC professional course is the one that we've just discussed now with the 3 phases. Then the repeaters course, it is also part of the professional program, but as highlighted, it kicks off in phase 2. And there is an expectation, but with guidance and support for candidates then to catch up on phase 1. And then we've got the APC deferred course. The APC deferred course says that I am not ready for APC 2022, but I've not done a professional program before. And I just want to understand the expectation even more, because you are telling me that this has got an element of professional development, which is something that I need to demonstrate at work. So essentially, what we then do with the APC deferred course, we've got candidates registering in 2022 that will then only do phase 1 and phase 2, and they will then drop off after the end of phase 2, so that they can come back in 2023 and start over from phase 1, 2, but then do phase 3. So it then just gives them the opportunity to really take in the APC assessment process in a more manageable way, and give them the opportunity to also be able to marry it with a practical experience. So those are the 3 or the 4 professional courses that we've got. And they form part of the APC professional program, meaning that if you are enrolled in one of them, at the end, you qualify, or you may qualify for the certificate of eligibility, meaning that come the end of the program, we are saying that you've demonstrated competence through those 3 case studies, or in the 3 case studies, plus the supplementary opportunity. And we are saying that you have demonstrated that you are ready to go and sit for the APC with CIMA2CA. So then with that certificate, as I've mentioned, it is valid for 3 years. Yes, and that is just as much. So when your results come out, it will indicate that you were with EPC or in normal rhythm, and that is how that process works. Normal tuition for this program, it's 14,000 for first-time candidates. And the current tuition that you'll then be seeing on the website and on other material is 10.5. So this is the price that we are running now, because we then consider the APC repeaters course. They are jumping into the accelerated program now because they've got just a few weeks to then cover what they've missed, as well as what is currently in the program, which is quite a lot of work. But we then consider that the APC repeaters candidates, they've been exposed to the APC before, they've just were not successful in the APC. So that's where the pricing and the structure of the program came in. And again, from a timing perspective, the current program that we have published, it's the one that we are committing to the end of the year. More so because we have the CIMA administrative deadlines to meet. Then you'll also see on our site the EPC case study package. So I've highlighted it in red here because that is not part of the APC professional program. What it means that someone who takes that and completes it is not eligible for the award of the EPC certificate, meaning that anyone who takes that, even if they get C in case study 1, an overall outcome of a C, case study 2, case study 3, case study 3.2, they are not eligible for the award of the certificate, because the certificate is much more than just going through the case study. It's about the professional program that is involved in building professional competence. And because we cannot then say someone who just sits for the case study without going into saying coaching support, mentorship support, team task, developmental assessments like the quizzes that we have as part of development, because someone is not going through that, we cannot then certify them as they've demonstrated professional competence. Yes, they've demonstrated competence in the case study, but not in the program. So that's why that runs a bit differently. and it's catered for candidates that have got a valid certificate, either with us that we issued in 2021 or 2020, or they've got a valid certificate from another professional program provider. They can look at what? At the APC case study option. And then in terms of the other general matters, our fees have got payment plans, 25% on registration and the balance payable until end of September. Employer arrangements are acceptable. So we've got arrangement with different companies. So if your company is one of the companies, then you just need to advise them that you are enrolled into our program, and then they will commit to pay. So if they are new, we then have an onboarding process where we then, ask them to submit particular documents that we then use in order to just build that relationship. So the program for 2022, it's run as an online-only basis. It is focused on the RSA context. What does it mean? The APC, it's the same case study. It's written in Zim, Namibia, as well as Eswatini. So it's the South African version, but then it's adapted by the different professional bodies for the specific circumstances in those countries. So for our program, however, if you are, say, from Namibia, Eswatini, or Zim, if you registered into our program, then you will always write or sit for the case study in the context of South Africa. So when we describe, say, the economic environment, we'll be focusing specifically on the South African one. So that is something that one just needs to be mindful of. The program is delivered via Teams and also the recorded sessions. And we've got a timetable that we've published. We commit to that timetable in order to help you use it as saying, taking leave with your employer and saying that there's a case study, I need some days off. So we have committed to those dates, and you can therefore have access to the timetable and start applying for leave using it as a reference. The mentorship program, as we mentioned, a critical part of our program, it's really built around the program where there are 5 primary sessions that we have formalized: the introduction between yourself and the mentors, reflection on how phase 2 went, and reflection after each and every case study. Then the assessment structure, we've gone through that in quite a lot of detail. The learning, when we talk about things are found online, they are found on my Universe portal. You can register a free profile, and then you'll be able to add a course. Once your profile is activated, see material, videos, and also an assessment platform. So all your results will sit there, and we keep them to the extent that CICA requires them, say, for audit or say for undertaking any work or research that they may want. Registration closes on the 1st of July, 2022, and our registrations are facilitated via our online platform. So once you are enrolled, you get a welcome note clarifying the administrative processes, as well as a candidate WhatsApp group. So that is essentially what we had installed for you tonight. So we can jump into questions from here. Where do we start? Okay, this one hand. Please go for it. Romano, yes. Fidi, you wanted to say something? Yeah.
No, Rendani, I think, yeah, the couple of questions around in the chat box, and Ere has been trying to address them, but it's around, I guess, whether there would be in 2022, whether there would be a CIMA tailored program, and I think you've answered to say no, not in 2022. If someone wants to jump onto a program this year and still get certified this year because they think they will still be ready and be declared competent to go and write the CIMA2CA APC this year, December, that candidate needs to register for the repeaters program.
Yeah. Yes. So
10,500.
Yes. And just to clarify, so is the repeaters cost for the purpose of just financial reporting, but the moment they come in, it's the professional program. Yes.
It's the professional program in full. Yes. It's just that they will click on APC repeaters program on our platform, but it will give them access to everything we've done from phase 1. But they will be catching up on their own with those videos if need be.
100%, yes.
Correct. And then from here, they'll be jumping into mini case study B and looking forward. And if, I guess, then maybe clarify, if then you are at a point where you're thinking you want to jump in, but you don't want to, your intention is not to be certified this year, but you want to jump in now.
So I think that one will always be an interesting one. I'll have loved to then take it offline to just understand why someone will want that, because I'll not want someone to make an investment that will not yield probably a good return right now. So
yeah, I agree with you.
Because the case study phase can get quite intense. And if you are then enrolled for that and you miss case study, so it's not like there's any reprieve to the fees. So the entire fee is charged. So I'll want to then take it offline and just understand their requirements. And if it is a matter of they've decided that they will rather sit for APC 2023, that's then the conversations about how can we then put together a program that meets their needs. And we have thought about it. It's just a matter of finalizing the details about the timing, because there is a need, as I was saying before, to bridge that technical gap. And then it will be ideal for them to join the APC comprehensive course once that part is done. So it's like probably a mini phase to help them bridge that gap before they join other candidates. But as I'm saying, we don't have the details, and I will not want to then just talk on that basis now. But we can confirm we'll have something definitely for 2023.
Okay, take the questions in the order from the hands up.
All right, thank you.
Hey, good evening, Renan. Is Romano here. Thanks so much for the session. I think from my side, so I'm just trying to understand. So because I mean, CIMA has now approved this agreement in June, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, I'm sure most of the CIMA students on here is very, very worried about the technical side of it, because not only is it financial accounting, it's auditing as well as taxation as well, which is a big bridge to gap. So I mean, if I listen to you, so currently now that I don't think you would advise any of the CIMA students who have got the bridge or who have got the gap to actually then do the program, because I just want to make sure that, like you said, if I pay the 10,500, I'm not going to get it back. I'll have to incur additional costs next year as well. I also don't want to set myself up for failure. But I am unclear of what the game plan is for somebody that is a CIMA student or CIMA professional that has qualified as a CIMA professional, now to go on and make sure that I am successful, not only first successful in your program, because I need to pass your program first to be able to get the certificate, and then I need to go and pass the APC. So from my point of view, I just would some clarity as how we're going to go about bridging that gap and then making sure that you are successful in this program as well as the APC.
Yeah,
I know it is a difficult question right now. You're dealing with a lot of moving particles at the same time. But I mean, just so that you can say, but listen, guys, because for me, I mean, trying to prepare for the exam is going to be difficult because we don't know, how many accounting standards should I go and study.
Yeah.
What is the backlog going to be? So coming from a CIMA point of view, we would have received the case study 6 weeks in advance. And then the case study preparation courses that we go on, the lecturers can already pick up and say, listen, go and study these 5 accounting principles, go and do this, go and do that. Where, in this one, we won't know until 5 days before. And I mean, by that time, it's already too late.
Yes. And thank you for that feedback. Because even so, before we even say it's going to be a CIMA specific issue, even the candidates that really pursued the CA journey via the traditional route, they do find the 5-day very demanding. So I won't lie. So they find the 5-day demanding, especially because the CICA has even in the past introduced some standards that are not part of the CTA ITC syllabus. And they always say it's part of lifelong learning. So they will have then needed to really maneuver in that 5 days to say, which standard is this? I know it exists, we never covered it. Now let me understand what it's all about. How does it relate to the case study? And so on and so on and so on. And it's a lot of work, and we will really not, my personal view is that I will not want you to really have this as a rushed process. So the APC, it's a very brilliant assessment that they've put together here, even on international standards. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I really want you to have time to put into learning, understanding, as well applying the thinking and getting the value that is envisioned in designing the APC in its current structure. And for me, that requires time. So if you ask me for my personal feedback, based on the level of technical knowledge required, I will say that 5 months will be a big stretch. And if I'm to advise you, both as part of the professional team members and personally, I'll say that yes, if you got the funding, if you got the finances, rather invest them, say, in a program that will look to you getting the certificate in 2023. That's my personal view, because I know the next 5 months will be very demanding. We've dealt with CIMA professionals in the ITC program. We've dealt with CIMA professionals in the CTA program. They've expressed how demanding the technical knowledge that is expected here is. And based on that feedback and the work that they had to put in for them to succeed, I will say that it really requires more. And what we used to do even more to just come to that acknowledgement, we used to then price our program to say it's a 12-month program, but given the feedback to say it's quite a lot to cover while juggling my day-to-day, we then extended it by 6 months, and it was part of the program to say this going into ITC is an 18-month program. If you can finish it in 12, brilliant. But you can extend it for another 6 months at our previous design for that ITC structure. So that's where I'm coming from as well, to then say that if that's the case, then for me saying that, okay, let me not worry about APC 2022, but now I understand what it's all about. Let me prepare. Let me hear what EPC will come up with if I like it, let me take it and work through the program ahead of 2023 rather. So that will be my position. Okay, hope that makes sense, Roman.
Thanks so much, Rendani. I appreciate the honesty on that one. I think, yeah, because I think it's we have to be honest with each other. Like you said, you know, you don't want to set us up for failure as well. Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for that. Lumka?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great. So I think my question is actually a build-up, so I'm not going to repeat the stuff that the other gentleman asked. So I think it's clear, and I think I've also made up my mind that I'd rather go for the program for next year to obviously address the technical challenges, or rather the gaps. But what I'm looking for from you is your advice, because from what I understood from the packages that you offer, what would be most ideal for someone like me would be to do the full APC program, which is the one that runs for 12 months, which starts in January next year, correct?
Yeah, yes. As it starts, as everything stands, yes. Yeah.
Yes. But my question though would be also in addition is, what can I do now to prepare for that?
That's a good question. That's a good question, and I think to be transparent with you, I'll say maybe give us, say, a week to really apply our minds to it, and then we can then get back to you to say, yes, we've really thought about it, we've really considered, because one of the things that we were still looking quite closely with, so in the team that I shared with you, there's two of us that have done CIMA before, but it was in the previous, is it 2019? No, is it 2019? Pre-2019 syllabus, yes. The pre-20, just before the 2019 syllabus that was introduced. So we wanted to just then look at it, apply our minds to then say that, all right, thinking about some of the professionals that qualified in the old syllabus and also the ones that qualified now, where are then these clear gaps that we can identify, and therefore that we can say we are prioritizing ahead, say, of the launch of the program, or that we can then say, yes, if you are joining, say, that APC comprehensive course, then what you can then be doing from now to then is this, something that you can manage. So I'll say kindly give us a week in that regard, then we will really then just have a detailed look and then give you a firm answer in that regard.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Lumka. Willem, good evening.
Evening, Rendani.
Yes.
Rendani, I just quickly want to briefly clarify what my understanding at this particular moment. So this new pathway agreement basically states that no longer will a CIMA professional be required to write the ITC, but rather the APC. Is that correct?
But then they with the, what is it, transition period, to say those that are already in the program now, they can finish the program and sit either for June 2022 or Jan 2023 or June 2023. That will be the last opportunity to sit for ITC. So let's say you are saying you've already invested in ITC and you're like, no, guys, I can't write this off. I know that I want to sit for June and I'm ready. Then they're saying, please proceed, sit for June. If you are successful, then you can then get what? You can then get, you can pursue the CA designation through that process still. And if you're successful, you don't need to then sit for APC. So that is the transition period. So there's just these 3 ITC opportunities left. June 2022, which is actually in this month, Jan 2023, and June 2023.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm not too sure if there's you know, a lot of people on here that is students or not students, but I would just like to maybe give a bit of background from my personal experience. I'm also finished my CIMA qualification, and approached in Dunamu, and all I can say from a feedback perspective for those that are considering, I think, and I speak directly to Ferdinand, I speak to Rendani, these guys are exceptionally responsive, which I appreciate. I'm telling it out now loud. And very supportive. I mean, if I miss a class, they most probably will try to hunt me down. But the point being is, I also like to say from my personal view, we all are professionals. We're all busy. We all work. And I think, you know, if you're studying a fresh third year, fourth year, everybody works out there. Auditors work, everybody works. It's finding the time. There is no easy way around this, people. There is no shortcut to this. And potentially, if you want to know what you need to do for next year, buy yourself a textbook, get the list of textbooks, start going through that detail, because the detail in CIMA, I can't even remember if we've done tax. There's a tremendous amount of tax, especially when you haven't touched base on it. The IFRS standards, there's a tremendous amount of it, but it doesn't mean it's not doable. It's you most probably have touched base on all of it. You didn't even realize it. It's now just putting it in a structure. So my recommendation is, and this is my personal view, I might be wrong here, but my focus point this year was to basically get the basics down from tax and from my financial accounting, IFRS and IAS. And I promise you, 6 months down the line, I've already learned a lot through the classes through the CTA classes that I've attended this year. So maybe I'm a bit in advance because I started earlier this year, but it's doable. So people don't lose track. Don't think it's not doable. Don't think next year. Start now, because I am almost convinced, my personal experience, because I'm also in an executive position myself. So finding time is exceptionally difficult. But the point being is, the sooner you start, chapter by chapter, you'll get through it, and it sticks. It does stick. It is basic things that we deal with on a daily basis. So that's my recommendation. And I do, again, Rendani, to you and the team, thank you very much for the support. And I will continue on the path, CTA, ITC, and I most probably do the APC anyway, because I'm still not convinced. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I almost feel more comfortable by saying the APC is maybe an approach that I would rather recommend, but definitely for full-time employment and all of this, take your time and work through that, because there is a lot of things that, the technical things can get overwhelming, but a day or two sitting with that problems or things, I get through them. So I appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for sharing, Willem. Thank you very much. All right, Larry, you are next. But yeah, I think, I hope you guys got it. So the technical, the way CIMA demands the technical is something noteworthy. But yeah, let it go for it, please.
Thanks, Rendani. So from me, I just want to pick on one of your slides. You had mentioned that you may qualify for the certificate of eligibility.
Yes.
So what will make one not to qualify or certified? Do we need to pass APC or Endonamo APC type of exams? And does it also mean that if I enroll next year, then I may not qualify if I don't receive or I'm not certified by either Endonamo or the other institutions?
Yes, so CIMA, for the as far as I've known, even from myself when I qualified, we needed to join a professional program. And in the professional program, the assessments that we had to go through, and we had to pass. At the time, it was just a pass, no professional competence. So it's always been the structure that it has. So after that, the professional program providers, we then have the privilege of then issuing certificates, provided that we have candidates meeting the criteria that we've set out. So the criteria is available. So if you want to then have a look, so you can request it, but when you register, it's provided to you. It will then indicate, as Swedi was highlighting in high level, what is the expectation. So the expectation is that you need to demonstrate competence in at least 2 of the 4 case studies, with greater weighting being placed on 2, 3, and 3.2. So that is there's a criteria that we've put together, and that criteria is the one that we've discussed and presented to the CICA's accreditation committee. So they understand that therefore everyone then coming from our professional program provider, they have ticked the box based on that criteria. So that's a way of just then being transparent with the system, as well as being fair to everyone that comes into a program, to at least have an understanding to say that what is then expected of me, and therefore when will I know that I'm there, or when will I know that I need more work, and so on. So that is how that works. So it's a standard CICA process, been around for the past, I think, ever since I've known, or ever since I've been born, something like that. But yeah, that's how it works.
So just to avoid, maybe for the matter of time, so I just want to know still on that. So if we enroll now, and when I say we, I mean, of course, Velam, he had said is looking forward to write it, maybe in December, maybe others on the call. So is it not a challenge for us compared to those who had started in January now for this certification? Because that's the only worry for me. I mean, I'm looking forward to write this year as well, but my worry is around the certification, because I mean, I can enroll and like you said, I may not qualify to write. So I'm just worried about the time in between registering now, because I don't know when phase 2 is starting. Sorry, I missed that. You had mentioned phase 2 and 3. Phase 1 is done. Phase 2, I'm not sure when it's starting. Maybe this month. I don't know when, but this month. But I'm worried about the time for us to absorb the previous videos or screen casts, plus the phase 2 and phase 3, and then be eligible or be certified.
Yeah, maybe let me take it, Rendani.
Sure.
I think, Larry, we are currently in phase 2. So phase 1 is done. Phase 2, we are halfway. We finished mini case study A, but we are gonna start mini case study B. So that's why I'm saying we're halfway phase 2. And I understand your concern around the certification, but maybe the reason I wanted to take it is to elaborate for you as to what the certification mean. So when we, as Endunamo, give you the certificate, we are saying we have evaluated Larry's professional competence. And in our professional judgment, Larry is at a point where his professional competence is at a level of an entry of a chartered accountant, meaning he demonstrates adequate technical competence of a chartered accountant. he demonstrates adequate competence when it comes to enabling competencies, and he possesses appropriate level of professional values and attitudes. Meaning, he is ready to write that APC at CIMA2CA and has got almost 100% chance of passing it. Meaning, our certification means when you move from here, it's more likely that you will pass that in 2-3 weeks time, because remember, we give you the certificate and in 3 weeks time you write the CIMA2CA, you will be able to pass. So and that's why we will only give it to you when we've assessed all those 3 bubbles that I'm talking about, and we are comfortable that you will also have a fair chance of passing that APC. If we think you are not having that fair chance because you haven't demonstrated those technical competencies at the level that CIMA2CA needs them, we will not give you the certificate. I thought I will just clarify that just to make sure that you understand what we mean when we say we're giving the certificate or not giving it. Does that make sense, Larry?
Yeah, that's clear. Thank you. So just last point, I mean, Vela mentioned it. So, I mean, I attended Endunamo ITC, so I wanted to write actually January 2023. So I found Endunamo very individualized. It's more like a Montessori type of school on early development, individualized. You've got access to facilitators and they're very responsive. So I mean, just to everyone who are willing to join, I mean, that's all I can say. But yeah, Endunam it's a very good school to provide such. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, Randani, you can continue. Who's next, guys?
And just, yeah, before Larry goes, I've shared a copy of the timetable also for everyone's benefit. So you can just click on the link and you can just see where we are on phase 2, how much of it is left, and when does phase 3 actually kicks off, when we expect the certification, final certifications, and so on. So that might be helpful. All right, thank you. Is Nala? Yes.
No. Are you ready?
Good evening.
It's me. Hello.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, hi, Rendani. I just want to find something. I don't know whether you're aware that the previous pathway agreement was that you need to have accumulated 2 years after your qualification from CIMA before you can be eligible to sit for the ITC, you know. So this one is silent. So I'm not sure whether you know whether that has been waived, fallen off, or you still have to. I'm not talking about articles now. I'm talking about after your post qualification from CIMA, you must sit for 2 years, then you can apply for the exam.
Oh, okay. I thought it was you can sit, but you cannot apply for membership.
No. Because I literally applied for an exam. I was part of a ITC course last year because I've had my CIMA for almost a year. And then CIMA Examination Center, department, came back with an email, said, oh, oopsie, we approved your examination, but you can't sit.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I was also in the same boat. And I think it is true because I was also in the same boat as well. I also wanted to apply for ITC, but I got a letter saying that I can't because I'm not yet 2 years. So it was the norm as well.
All right. No, thanks for that clarification. But yes, I think, yeah, those query you can direct them to also Audrey, but I've noted them. But I know she's very responsive. So if you want me to assist, I'm happy to assist in that regard. But I also noted that they were very light on those kind of details. I don't know whether it was the intention to simplify the process. And from the messaging, it sounds like some of the changes were to simplify the process. So I don't know whether that is one of the specific ones, but I'm happy to follow up for you. So yeah, so I can follow up. So it's just to confirm, is to say anyone, in other words, is there any requirement or any waiting period immediately after qualifying, right? That's the question.
Yes, because previously it was 2 years that you had to wait before you could actually write. So then the second question is that in terms of the various courses that you have actually highlighted, I mean, I've done CTA, I've done articles, and I was on another service providers on the ITC course halfway until CIMA2CA stopped me, you know. So I don't know whether, which one should I wait for next year? And if CIMA2CA says there's no waiting periods after qualifying, or should I attempt the July, the one that's closing in July with all my profile that I've just, you know?
Yeah, so just to confirm, are you saying you don't qualify now for June 22?
No, I want to write in December, right? However, with the time frame and the content and the weight of the program, I'm asking that because I've already been on an ITC program. I have done CTA previously. I have also done articles. You know, do you think I have a good shot at, that's what I'm asking, at registering now?
Yeah, no, so and I think it'll be great if we can say catch up separately, say on a Monday, and just understand your journey more, and then we can also talk about what, because you said you were also in a program even now or last year, so then we can just understand that details. Then I can just to speak specifically to then your circumstances, and then we can take it from them. So happy for us to catch up, say on a Monday.
We'll do that.
And then,
All right.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
So you can speak to the team, any of the details there, and then they will arrange something for us.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Rendani.
Hi.
Hi, Rory-san here.
Hey, Rory. Hi.
Hi, I've got quite a lot of information regarding what Nala has been asking, if it was Nala who was speaking. I've been approved already. I think I was one of the first people who already submitted their information. So I've got my approval to sit already from CIMA2CA.
Okay.
So this is how the two agreements, I'm just showing the information just to demystify everybody that's here. Okay. So all that you have to do, there is 2 links to the information that is provided on the full detailed agreement, right? So with this new agreement, they have given you undergraduate degrees that they're saying you need to possess a specific undergraduate degrees. From all the tertiary institutions, they list all of those degrees that they are recognizing. Then when you've got that degree, that is your junior degree now, and then you provide them with your CIMA qualification. But now, this CIMA qualification, you have to have gone through the entire CIMA process. Therefore, my understanding is they do not recognize a person who went through a CFO route. That was my understanding. I didn't clarify on that one because they particularly state that you must have gone through the entire process, right? So what I did, I gave them my CIMA membership. There is no waiting period, so it has been waived. The 24 months has been waived.
Fine.
So you give them your CIMA certificate, you give them the proof of your degree, you give them your ID number. I was approved in 4 hours by Adri, and she was on leave. but within 4 hours, I got my approval.
I told you it's very responsive.
And
She loves the job.
yes, CIMA is also good. You need that letter of good standing from CIMA.
Yeah.
So within 15 minutes, you've got your letter of good standing. So if you focus on kickstarting the process, you can get your letter in 1 day.
Rory, are you saying 15 minutes from CIMA?
Yes, from CIMA.
I've been
took
waiting
me
7
literally.
days. I've been waiting 7 days because when I called them, the guy that helped me said that I need to wait 7 days for them to email me. So I think it's the 5th day today, so I've still got 2 more days to go. I haven't received it yet.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got it in 15 minutes. I just
Wow,
called
lucky
CIMA
you.
Johannesburg.
Lucky you. Yeah,
I
I
called
called
CIMA
offers as well. I
Johannesburg.
mean, I waited half an hour on the line for somebody to answer. Yeah, lucky you. But
Yeah.
we'll wait.
I also have to
So
add.
you still have the option though. Let me just finalize. You still have the option though for those people who are way advanced into the old agreement. If you are way advanced into the old agreement, you can still continue on that journey. They are still going to certify you based on the old agreement. So if you're a person who was already preparing for their ITC, you can still go write your ITC.
Agreed.
But then remember, with that old one, the 24 months is going to be applicable. And again, your training, what do they call it? Your articles are then still required. On this one, there's no articles, there's no waiting period.
Yeah, no, and I think that was the objective of simplifying the process. But no, thank you very much for clarifying. So I think for those that are still in the process, just follow up. But from the commitment that came from both teams, I think they want to make this work. So yeah. So thank you very much for that. Okay.
Rendani, may I just say something regarding what Rory has been saying?
So maybe just hold on, please. Just to hold that thought, because I see this teams has got numbers on their hands. So just maybe to go through that, just because I know some is intervening.
Yes, it's intervening. I'll be very quick, being cognizant of the time. So that M can actually get to also just have his say. I just wanted to check regarding the comprehensive course, the one that's got 4 phases from phase note to phase 3, starting in January. When is your cutoff period for us to register for that? And the follow-up question to that is, do we get any books or study material with that 14,000?
Oh, so okay. So the cutoff period. So what we normally do, so around November, December, that's when we generally, so around October, November, we generally launch our 2023 programs. So that's across. So that's when that information goes out. And in terms of just then the starting point, we'll then advise of the starting point, and we'll also have a separate welcome session to just advise how the program is going to run, for how long, what is included, and what is expected, and so on. So that will normally have around end of November, just to get everyone prepared and start planning for how the next year will look like. And in terms of the tuition, so the tuition just covers the core program. So that's your mentorship, coaching support, consultation, the assessments, what do you call it? The hire of the laptops. So that's included. But in terms of the books, because most of the time we never had to do that, because you find that most of the candidates coming into the program are auditors that will then have access, say, to the IFRS from, say, the ITC days or part of their work experience. And also what is easier, say, from a tax perspective, you find that rather than buy a tax legislation, you can just download the Income Tax Act. So it's not like ITC where you are required to bring the actual copy. You can actually print, say, maybe text, maybe they've triggered, say, section 11A, for instance. You can then just print the relevant sections going into the case study rather than having to invest in a separate textbook. So accounting-wise, because the standards are very big, that might be probably one of the handbooks that you may, so accounting and audit, those may be the two handbooks that you need to buy. But from a tax perspective, I'll say probably not. Yeah, so the program does not include books, but in terms of whether you need to buy all of them, my initial response is a no. Yeah, Fedi, maybe anything you want to add there?
All sorted. No additions. Thanks, Randani.
Sure. Makes sense, and Tabling?
Yes, Randani, it does. Thank you very much.
All right, great.
I'm still excited.
Great stuff. We are still excited as well. Great stuff. Irene, you're on top. Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
I want to ask a question, but I'm not so sure if it's the right platform here. I'm someone who has finished my CA articles, the practical side, and I'm trying to get into the CIMA route because I have a first degree in finance and banking, and I was given quite a number of exemptions. I'm also trying to get a master's gateway so that I can get more exemptions and do the CIMA. So my question is, do you also offer training for people who are trying to finish their CIMA professional course?
No. I'm tempted to say not yet, but I'm gonna leave it at no. So we don't have any CIMA offering, but if you need some guidance, I'm happy to also assist. You can contact me, and then I'll just let you know in terms of some of the existing industry providers that I've spoken to. So I can assist. We can chat on Monday, and I can assist from there.
Okay, the email address, I just got this advert on someone's WhatsApp status. The email address, are you going to help us?
Use any of the contact details here, and the team will assist.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yes. WhatsApp is so usually quicker, so all the numbers that you see there have got WhatsApp. If you prefer it. The next, and okay, sorry, are you done? Sorry, just sorry.
I would want to understand. So the pathway will be scratching ITC and replace it with APC. Is that so?
Yeah. So you'll not need to do both. Just the APC.
Thank you very much. I'm answered.
All right, thank you. It seems you're the one who will then take us to the end of the session tonight. Go for it, please.
All right, thank you, Randani.
Maybe your name as well, sorry.
Sorry?
Your name as well. We're just calling you M.
It's Monashe Randani.
Oh, I was not hearing you. Sorry. Go for it. Sorry.
No problem. It's okay. All right. Yeah. My battery is about low, and I'm on the road.
Sure.
So, pardon me if it. However, I wanted to ask if suppose I pass the first two well, is it compulsory for me to write the other two? Sorry, the other one, because I understand that 3.2 will be optional, but the third one, will it be still compulsory for me to write? That's my question. Then my other my other contribution would be to respond to what Rory was saying. And there was a question earlier on that Rory was actually responding to. So there is no waiting period anymore. Once you qualify as a CIMA member, you can directly or automatically get a letter from ADRI to write your APC, right? Or to register with Endunamo in order to write APC. And then the corporate pathway programs like your CFO are still acceptable as long as your work experience will still be assessed, which it is assessed by CIMA. The only pathways that are acceptable are the mutual recognition path. For instance, if you have the ICAO, which is the Institute of Chartered Accountants England and Wales, where you are exempted from your work experience by CIMA, you will not be eligible to register with CICA because there are already mutual recognition agreements with CICA in place. I hope that answers some questions. Thank you.
Yeah, that clarified, I think, some of those questions. Thank you very much for that. And to your own first question, so as I was saying, that this we can always share with you, so you can drop an email to the team, and we can then just give you a sense so that you understand the expectations. So what then this official document does is that it gives you the permutations to say, yeah, what will happen if, as you put it, you're a CCC, so you can just come and then do what? Come and have a look. So the profile you were describing was actually profile number 19. So profile number 19 will then be someone who gets a C, and either misses or then gets an LC. So they will then automatically be given a supplementary, which they will need to do it, which they will need to write and demonstrate competence in before the certificate is awarded. So that is how that works. But yes, this document is available, and you can get an opportunity to really sit with it, apply a mind, and if you have any questions, reach out. Ken, so thank you very much. It was a great session. Looking forward to really having you, walking the journey with every one of you. So yes, so I hope you've got at least a better understanding of the APC as an assessment, and therefore what kind of commitment it will require. If you are still committed to then sitting for it this year, then yes, reach out. But if you are saying you've decided next year and you're just waiting to see how the program will look, yes, so as I was saying, give us a week or so, and then we'll come up with something. And if you are still undecided, you can reach out and then just ask for guidance. We're more than willing to assist, and just make sure that at least the decision you make, it's a well-informed decision and really takes your circumstances into consideration. Rory, is that an old hand? Just to make sure before I ask Feli to close.
No, it's not an old hand. I just have one question.
Oh, okay.
The certificate that you're going to be issuing to say you are competent to be sitting the APC, you said it is valid for 3 years.
Yes.
What happens after the 3 years?
So the 3 years, you'll see also in that CICA documentation, it says it needs to be renewed. So what it means that you will need to register for a professional program again and get a new certificate.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. And which is a really positive outcome compared to the CA previous one, where after exhausting your 2 ITC attempts, you now have to go back to a CTA program. So this, I think, it's something that is quite positive. And more so because once you've got a certificate, and you might be saying that I just want to go and fresh say my knowledge and my case study approach, then cheaper or cost-effective packages like the APC case study, they are available, which really then goes a long way in terms of just ensuring that you get the support before an APC sitting. Okay, thank you, Fedi. Any final words so that we can release everybody?
Yeah, thanks, Rendani. I think really appreciate the time and for stealing an hour and a half over and above what we had committed to. And it shows the level of excitement that you guys want to journey on this with us. And we're really looking forward to having you in the program, either this year or next year, but really looking forward, and thank you so much. And reach out if you've got any question whatsoever, and we'll try by all means to address it. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Rendani.
Thanks. Bye.
Rory.
Rendani.
Hi.